How high will the rookies be picked tonight? What round will the tight end run begin? And which of these three leagues truly sets the FFPC ADP? Join us tonight for 2 solid hours of live pick-by-pick draft coverage of the first FFPC 150 Classic Leagues of the season, the Genesis, the Revelations, and the Apocalypse Leagues. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hours starts now.
Let's begin now.
New cologne on, feeling so good, change the color to my phone. Orange Kool-Aid, go good with Patron. No, hell no, boy.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Cause I'm still above ground, that's the reason I pray. Got my car cleaned up, now I'm ready to play. Make a call to the sticks, say I'm headed that way. Heard my cousin cooking out, I gotta get me a plate.
He's Dave Gerzak. I'm Eric Balkman. Welcome into 2 hours of draft coverage on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. Genesis, Revelations, and Apocalypse. If you want to follow the streaming draft boards, you can. YouTube.com/High Stakes Fantasy Football. I'm not going to tell you how to get in touch with us. I'm not going to tell you anything about our social networks because we got to get going. We've already got 4 picks in to the Genesis draft, which we're kicking off tonight with our first of 3 live draft coverages. So here's the draft order for the Genesis draft tonight. Stuart Keene, LOB 26er, is drafting first tonight. Followed up are Mike and Todd Aaron, the mad genius of football. Hudson Kern-Reeve picking third under the name Truth Warrior Supreme 26er tonight. Dustin Hayek is beast, and he is appropriately hitting cleanup tonight, drafting fourth. Then we got a pair of brothers. Brent Studebaker, Stud Dynasty 26er, is fifth. Brian Studebaker, the real man of genius, is sixth. The $500,000 FFPC Playoff Challenge champ Austin Martin is drafting seventh under the team name See What Happens, same team name he had for his Playoff Challenge championship. The Fake Tree Huggers, owned by Biplab Mandel, picking eighth. Last year's defending champ of the Genesis League, Fantasy Dum Dums 26er, that's Robert Marshall. And then Jake Valish and Clint Ostermiller have combined to form 26-packer. They're picking 10th tonight at Todd from PA. Todd Burrows is drafting 11th. And Kaz of the North, the 26er, Brad Kuzema, is picking 12th tonight. We are halfway through the first round. And, first let's welcome in the Dizzle. Sorry, I had to cut you off on the intro, but we had to get going with the coverage tonight.
Hey, that's great. Just happy that we didn't have 10 minutes of promos.
Yeah, well, I can't do that tonight. Well, the other thing to keep in mind tonight, and this is going to be a breakneck pace, 60-second draft clock for these classics this year. So it's going to fly by. Let's talk about what's going on in the draft here, Dave. As Stuart Keene kicked things off with Christian McCaffrey. No surprise from the Aarons as they take Saquon Barkley. Ezekiel Elliott is the next running back off the board to Kern-Reeve. And then Alvin Kamara goes to Dustin Hayek at the 4 spot. Dalvin Cook at 5. No real surprises there, I guess, as Brent Studebaker takes him. And then you have Kenyan Drake go off the board to real man of genius. That's Brian Studebaker. He takes Kenyan Drake, and then the first wide receiver goes off the board. That's Austin Martin taking Michael Thomas. Tight ends have been broken here as Team 8. That is Biplab Mandel, who's apparently changed his team name to 69. Biplab takes Travis Kelce there, and then Travis Kelce's real-life teammate, Tyreke Hill, goes to the defending champ Robert Marshall's Fantasy Dum Dum. So let's break this down here. I don't think we necessarily need to talk about the top 5 picks here as much as we should talk about that number 6 pick, Dave. Kenyan Drake. Is he a guy that you'd be comfortable taking at the 106 if you were drafting in this format, considering the running backs that were already off the board?
I'd probably look a different direction, but it doesn't – I was actually a little surprised. I thought maybe there was a chance he could get him in the second, but I looked at Drake's ADP, and it's near the end of the first. So if you like Drake, that's where you got to take him.
And I think clearly what we can say is Brian Studebaker loves the Drake. He loves the Drake. taking him at 106.
Yeah, I mean, the risk with Drake is he has this, kind of a little bit of a limited area of production. And so you're really going off of that, and you're kind of assuming he's going to produce the same way. What could happen is you run into the same thing that happened to Damian Williams last year. He had that limited run of good production the year before.
Right.
And then this past year was pretty awful until the Super Bowl.
Right, yeah. What about when you look at the backups there? They drafted Eno Benjamin. I believe he was a 5th-round pick. And then they
might have been 7th.
7th round for Eno Benjamin?
I could be wrong,
okay.
Too, but...
Well, day 3 in any event.
Right.
And then you still have the other kid there.
Chase Edmonds.
Thank you, Chase Edmonds. I knew it was Chase something. As the backup. Are either of those guys threats to make this a committee, in your opinion, or is it the Drake show there, as he should be a 3-down bell cow back, in your opinion?
It doesn't seem to me. I mean, Edmonds actually is an all right player, but it does. They cleared the board. They got rid of David Johnson, so and if the offense is improved, Drake should have a good season, assuming he stays healthy and everything like that. I mean, when you look at the possibilities, it does make some sense. The thing is, they're not going to run the offense with Kyler Murray. They're not going to run it like Lamar Jackson, or at least it doesn't appear that way. So you don't have as much of a rushing concern. I mean, with Lamar Jackson, that's always a concern there, although they did run for a zillion yards.
Yeah, that's true.
But it seems like Drake. I mean, if their offense is really a top 10, he could be pretty good.
Robert Marshall selects Tyreke Hill at the 109 tonight, Dave. Second receiver off the board. Is he the second receiver off the board in your mind after Michael Thomas? Considering what we should see in Kansas City this year as they try to defend the Super Bowl title.
Well, to me, I would look at either Tyreke Hill or Davante Adams. I maybe would omit Hopkins because he's moving to a new team. There's a little bit of uncertainty there. I might.
Julio doesn't enter the conversation. Julio Jones.
Not for me quite that early in redraft, but that's just my take.
Okay.
I don't normally draft Davante Adams, but I might actually draft Adams in this case as the second wide receiver. He seems pretty safe.
There was actually an article on RotoWorld, I think it was RotoWorld today, about Davante Adams potentially leading the NFL in targets this year because Michael Thomas obviously has to fend off Emmanuel Sanders, and you'll have healthy Alvin Kamara all season long. And then Tyreke Hill, obviously they re-signed Watkins. You have Hardman coming back. Obviously Kelsey, and now Clyde Edwards-Helaire to deal with too. So I don't know. I think that's something interesting that we'll talk about going forward. Derrick Henry goes to a 26 Packer after the Tyreke Hill pack. 26 Packer is Jake Valish and Clint Ostermiller. Joe Mixon right after him, and then Davante Adams. The aforementioned Davante Adams ends round 1. We have 3 receivers off the board, 1 tight end, and the rest were all running backs in round 1. The Chasing the Helmet podcast, Dave, which I think the next episode you will appear on, Scott Connor has talked about how he's a lot of these early best balls in FFPC. He's seen it go so heavy, running back heavy early. And I was thinking, well, that is true. But once we get to these classics and the Football Guys Players Championships, which you can register for at myffpc.com, I'm still seeing a ton of running backs go off the board. I facilitated one earlier this week, and I feel like the first 10 picks were all running backs before Michael Thomas went at 111. And this isn't just the first round. I'm seeing a lot of running backs go in the first round this year. Certainly a trend that we will be following, no question. George Kittle, the first pick off the board in the second round here at the 201 to Cavs of the North, followed by DeAndre Hopkins. I think you made a really good point about Hopkins shifting to a new team. His efficiency was down last year, but he put up crazy numbers again, and I do believe he'll put up good numbers again this year, enough to justify a late first or early second round pick. I don't know, but certainly Todd Burrows thinks he will, as he picked him as the second player off the board. Miles Sanders, let's talk about this, because Dave, for the longest time, the Eagles running back situation has been a running back by committee, but they didn't really do anything in free agency. I know they just they re-signed Corey Clement. And they didn't really touch it in the draft. So it's like Miles Sanders and Boston Scott is the one guy behind there. Miles Sanders could have a breakout season this year, and as crazy as it seems to see him go at the 203, I've been seeing him go in the middle of the first rounds too. Miles Sanders, is that a player you want to get in business with in the first or second rounds this year?
I'd probably lean a little bit of a different direction. Nothing against Sanders personally. I don't trust Philadelphia's offensive, whether it's the scheme, the coordinator, the coach. When is the last time, and I'm sure you're going to be able to say something, but do they have anyone that's, other than Ertz, but at wide receiver or running back, it just seems like it's always a quagmire. There's never, the production is just not there. It's just a bust. kind of like the Detroit running game. It's like, okay, you got Kerryon Johnson, and you got DeAndre Swift. So now you have to deal with that. It just seems like it's just a mess. So it's almost like the new Patriots. And although that's possible that Sanders becomes the bell cow and all that stuff, you have to pay a first-round pick to find out if that's the case. I'm going to let someone else make that pick. I mean, if you look at Josh Jacobs goes around that spot, Josh Jacobs doesn't have that concern. I mean, the Raiders are, he's the guy, right? The Raiders are pretty straightforward. Gruden's stupid looking and everything. He's going to say, oh, yeah, Jacobs is great.
I am not stupid, man.
Yeah, he's just going to do that. So, I mean, it just seems like Sanders, I just don't trust Sanders.
Okay. All right. Well, that is the running back start for Jake Valicia and Clint Ostermiller there sitting in the 10 spot. Chris Godwin is the fifth receiver off the board, as he goes to Marshall. Marshall, the only team to start wide receiver in this draft. Biplab Mandel takes Josh Jacobs to go with Travis Kelce. Austin Eckler off the board to Austin Martin. Right in the middle of the first round to pair with Michael Thomas. And then we have three straight teams begin the draft with two running backs. Kenyan Drake goes in the first round to Brian Studebaker, and then he follows it up with Aaron Jones. Dalvin Cook goes in the first round to Brent Studebaker. He follows it up with Nick Chubb. Dustin Hayek takes Alvin Kamara in the first round. Now he gets Leonard Fournette, who just had his fifth-year option declined by Jacksonville today. More on that in a second. Julio Jones and Mike Evans then off the board is the final two, the 2-10 and the 2-11 in the second round. And then the final pick of the second round is Mark Andrews going to Stuart Keene. Interesting stuff there as he starts running back tight end. We should have him on the show and talk to him about that sometime. More on that later. All right, so let's talk about Austin Eckler, Dave. 206 for Eckler, for a guy who was among the top running backs last year. No Melvin Gordon this year. They still have Justin Jackson. They added Joshua Harris, running back out of UCLA, in the fourth round of this year's draft. But seems to be Eckler's backfield. Is he a guy that you would trust with a mid-second round pick, given that he doesn't necessarily have the body of a running back that you would invest that much draft capital into?
I probably would go a different direction, and nothing against him, but without Phillip Rivers there, doing all the drop-off passes, how good is the team going to be? I really don't know. I mean, again, it's the second round, and it goes back to all the uncertainty, and there's still a lot of uncertainty around that team.
Right, that's true. It is, and we don't know. Is it going to be Tyrod Taylor? Is it going to be Justin Herbert? And I think that'll dictate how much action Austin Eckler gets. The one thing I will say about Eckler is he got paid, and they clearly want him to be a big part of their offense going forward.
He's a damn good football player.
Maybe he's the type of guy that carries that offense while Tyrod Taylor is not zinging it all over the field like Phillip Rivers, and while Justin Herbert is still learning the NFL. That's a possibility as well. Who else did I want to talk about here? Mark Andrews over Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz goes in the third round. Mark Andrews goes at the 212. Zach Ertz for the last 4 or 5 years has been among the most targeted tight ends in fantasy football. Mark Andrews obviously had a big-time 2019 season. But, Dave, is that enough for you to want to take Andrews over Ertz, or would you be betting on the consistency and the experience?
I'd probably still lean towards Ertz. He still is the alpha dog there. I know you have Dallas Goedert. And Andrews, to me, I own him in a few leagues, and I liked him a lot, but he seems like he fell off at points. Last season he had a bunch of games where he just didn't do all that great. I'm trying to pull up his stats right now. So he was 64 catches, 852 yards, 10 touchdowns on 98 targets. So there's a lot of games last year. He had a really strong start. And in fact, the first 7 weeks, he had between 7 and 9 targets every week. But then after that, week 9, 3 targets. Week 11, 4 targets. Week 12, 3 targets. Week 14, 3 targets. I don't want to draft a player that has 3 and 4 targets halfway through the season and beyond when you have a limited passing game with Lamar Jackson. They don't throw it all that much. They run it all the time. In the red zone, Lamar Jackson's looking to get the ball. Otherwise, they're going to give it to Ingram.
Or they drafted J.K. Dobbins this year, too.
Yeah, you have to have J.K. Dobbins versus Philly. Ertz is still the guy between the 20s, but also in the red zone. They do look to him as well.
I keep hearing that Dallas Goedert's going to overtake him. And it hasn't happened the last 2 years, and I'm not sure if it's on pace to happen this year either.
I don't see it. I don't see how that's possible at all.
All right, so a guy who kicks off the third round here, Todd Gurley, who is going to Stuart Keene as his number 2 running back. Wow, McCaffrey and Gurley. Can you imagine what that backfield would have been like 2 years ago? Todd Gurley is obviously had the knee issues. The Rams end up cutting him, and he signs on with Atlanta, which should have a pretty high-powered offense this season with Matt Ryan, Jones, Ridley, Hayden Hurst there as well. You look at Todd Gurley, Dave. We don't necessarily trust his knee, but in the third round as your second running back, upside there is going to be tough to ignore.
Yeah, I actually really like that pick. I'm starting to like Gurley this year because really the only concern you don't have a concern about the offense, assuming that Ryan stays healthy. You don't have a concern about Gurley's production, assuming he stays healthy. So really, all you're worried about is the knee.
Right.
I mean, if his knee stays healthy, I mean, he has top 5 running back potential, or even top 3 potential. Like he's like in the past. It's possible, and even if his knee gets a little bit bad or he struggles a little bit, he could still return value at that spot. I like Gurley. I think there's a lot of upside, some downside, but not too crazy.
You got to believe Atlanta's going to want to manage him as well, too. They're not going to give him heavy touches the way that he was getting 2 or 3 years ago. So nice little pick there for Stuart Keene. Zach Ertz off the board to the Aarons after that, the mad genius of football. Lamar Jackson cracks the quarterbacks tonight as he's the first one off the board at the 3-0-3-2 Hudson Kern Reeve. And then we finally get a rookie off the board. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has slipped a little bit, Dave. This is a guy, and Dustin Hayek takes him here tonight as his third running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, after the NFL draft, and I would say this was even happening in drafts on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, well, the 1-2 turn, I kept seeing him consistently go there. That is really aggressive, but it's the Kansas City offense, and they could add any running back they wanted. They chose Edwards-Helaire, and now he's going to probably should be the front end of the combo there, and potentially a 3-down guy over Damian Williams.
Yeah, the thing is, when people are making these draft picks, this is not a normal off season. There may not even be training camp until August 25th for all we know. So how exactly is Clyde Edwards-Helaire or any rookie, especially at the wide receiver position,
right,
going to beat out the incumbent? I mean, Damian Williams is not a total loser. He's not a complete piece of crap. So I'd be very cautious about draft. I think this pick here with him at this spot isn't bad because it actually is kind of where I feel like where he should go is a little bit later. I mean, the early 1-2 turn is kind of ridiculous in a way.
Who do you like better this year, Gurley or Edwards-Helaire? Gurley. Okay. All right, let's go to the phone lines. I'm going to head out to the 817 right now as we're having the live Genesis draft coverage. Who is this? You're on the HSFF Hour.
Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Dustin, Beast.
Hey, Beast, what's going on? Dustin Hayek, who's picking 4th tonight. How do you like how the draft's falling in for you so far?
Oh, it's gone okay. Just heard you guys talking about that CEH pick, and I just couldn't hold back. Had to roll the dice there. Too much upside in the offense.
Yeah. So you took Leonard Fournette in the second round. Did it come down to Fournette and Edwards-Helaire for you there, and then you just realized, look, I'm not going to pass this guy up again in the third?
No, not at all. I really didn't even like Fournette there. It was just he was the best of what was left. So sometimes you've got to just close your eyes and make that pick, even though you don't like it. But, yeah, I just figured I needed another running back there. I wanted to go running back to kick it off, and he was the best of what was left. I really wasn't even targeting Helaire until he was there available in the third. And, again, just looking at what was left around him, I just thought the upside was too hard to resist. And, I don't expect much of him early in the season. He'll probably be sitting on my bench, but by the end of the season, he could be a league winner.
Dustin Hayek, one of the 26ers joining us here on the FFPC Genesis live draft coverage here on the HSFF Hour. Now, Dustin, you said that you were planning on starting off with 3 straight running backs. Have you noticed this season that the running backs, it seems like there's a resurgence this year and people are really putting a big time focus on them, and that's why you wanted to make sure you got 3 good ones right away?
Yeah, I think that's been building up over pretty much the last 3 years, and it just that hasn't slowed down at all. It just seems like when you look back, even at 2019 and look at some of these teams that won consistently week over week, I mean, it was the teams that had, the McCaffreys and just were stacked at running back and had the running backs that catch passes. So I just feel like, if history repeats itself and we look at those trends, the more of those guys you can take shots at, the better. That's what made Fournette a little bit tough. He did actually catch quite a few passes last year, but, I don't know if he can repeat that again this year. And to your point, I guess he's in a make or break situation. So let's see what they give him and how it goes this year. And he could overperform based on where he's going in ADP as well.
Go ahead.
Let me just ask you. I mean, so with Leonard Fournette, I mean, and maybe Balky after Dustin responds, maybe you can too. I mean, I know they declined his fifth-year option. I mean, do anyone have any idea what Jacksonville's problem is with Fournette? I mean, he's been productive. He seems like he's been playing like a running back should play pretty all right. I mean, does he have some unrealistic contract demands? Anybody know? Any idea?
Man, I wish I had an answer for you on that. I would just be guessing. All I can figure out is they came to the conclusion that they maybe took him a little too high, and should have done a little something different with that pick in the draft. I think he went like 5th or 6th overall, or somewhere up in the top 10, which is really high for a running back. And that's all I can figure out is maybe they've decided that they should have done something a little different there, and they're kind of I don't know, maybe not wanting to extend him and pay the money that he's going to be worth.
And Jacksonville seems to have a recent history of drafting players high and then have a falling out with them.
Yeah.
I don't think Blake Bortles is a great example, but Jalen Ramsey, the guy right now, Yannick Ngakoue, who wants out of there big time. Dante Fowler was gone. Allen Robinson left, and now it looks like Fournette is on his way out as well. It just seems to me that for whatever reason, people
maybe they're a bunch of assholes.
Maybe that's certainly.
What do you think? I mean, maybe that's the problem. If they're run by a-holes, that's not a good organization.
Hey, Dustin, you are coming up here on the clock. In fact, you may have already made your pick here, but who are you looking at the 409 after you start off with Kamara, Fournette, and CEH?
Yeah, let's make this pick on the clock. I'm looking at it now. And let's see, we're gonna swap over to tight end. Tight end is drying up quick, and I'm gonna roll the dice on Hooper and his new landing spot in Cleveland. They paid him enough money; surely they're gonna use him. And let's just hope him and Baker make a quick connection. As you mentioned, it's gonna be a short off season, so let's just hope that comes together real quick.
Dustin Hayek, ladies and gentlemen, start off with 3 running backs. He's got a tight end, and he'll be pounding receivers here shortly in what should be a pretty deep wide receiver draft. Dustin, we got to fly to our next guest here, but thanks so much for checking in. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the draft, man.
Hey, yeah, thanks for taking my call, guys. And just before the interviews are over, I mean, one of the 26ers has to discuss, two-packer hopping in the Genesis League last year, and I'll leave it to one of my boys to discuss it, but we have to cover that before the night's over.
Yeah, we will. Don't worry. That will be a topic of conversation, Dustin. I will not turn a blind eye to that.
All right. Well,
Dustin,
thanks, guys. Y'all are the best in the business, and it's an honor to play with you. Thanks for taking my call today.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, bud.
Honored to hear from him, Dustin Hayek tonight, drafting out of the 4 spot in the Genesis. Genesis draft. Go ahead, Dave.
I don't have much of a concern though about like a player like Austin Hooper, like a veteran that switches teams. Maybe he doesn't know the playbook. They're not running practices and stuff like that.
Right.
But he can learn the playbook. He can figure it out. Unlike a rookie who hasn't even been through training camp.
Never been in the NFL before. Austin Hooper has. I
right,
get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the 803 now and welcome in our next guest. You are on the air with Balky and Dave. Who is this?
Balky Dave. This is Stud Dynasty. How are y'all?
Hey, it's good to hear from you, man. Drafting out of the 5 spot tonight, and you've been pretty balanced so far. Cook and Chubb, Galladay and Sutton. Was that the plan going in?
Yeah, I wanted to get two quality running backs, and then try to come right back and get 2 number 1 receivers, and build my team off that depth.
I just look at this too. Were you looking at just taking whatever was left between Kamara and Cook at the 5?
Yeah, Beast actually. I was eyeing Kamara, but he took him. But I'm just as happy with Dalvin Cook.
I would just want to talk about your 4th round pick here briefly, Brent, as we look at Cortland Sutton playing on a team that's suddenly flush with weapons. Obviously Noah Fant was already there, but now they have KJ Hamler. Jerry Jeudy joins the team. Do you think Cortland Sutton is still going to be finishing at the top of the Broncos wide receivers as far as fantasy points goes this season?
I do. He's got a good connection with Drew Lock. You bring in Jeudy. Y'all were talking about it earlier. Rookies are going to have they're going to be behind the 8 ball coming into this season. I expect Noah Fant to put up better numbers than he did last year. But Sutton's the big target. Drew Lock loves him. Having Jeudy help come underneath and stretch the field with Sutton, I think it's just going to improve his numbers that he had with Locke at the end of the year last year.
Brent Studebaker joining the HSFF Hours coverage of the FFPC Genesis draft here. And Brent, you're coming up on a pick here. I think you're about to be on the clock if you're not already. We have 7 tight ends off the board. Are you looking at that position here? Or are you going to let that go and see what happens and falls to you in the 6th? What are you thinking here at this 505 pick?
I'm going to let the tight end fall to or keep falling. To me, if you don't have a Kittle, Kelsey, you might as well just wait. I'm not gonna take a jump and take a T.J. Hawkinson or somebody. I mean, I'll wait my mindset wise on it.
Brent, as you look at this draft board tonight and kind of take it all in, I know you're buddies with all the 26ers, obviously, so it's tough to be surprised, but has there been any surprises in this draft that as far as trends or as far as a player slipping or getting overdrafted in your opinion?
Yeah, I think real man of genius, or I'll call him real dummy of genius, because that Kenyan Drake at 1.06 is the biggest shocker you'll see all year. He has potential to win a league for you and be top 5, but that's pretty ballsy what he did. That's the biggest shocker to me.
Yeah, Kenyan Drake. We'll cover revelations here shortly to see where he went in that league, but that was a bit of a surprise. All right, so you're on the clock right now. Cook and Chubb as running back. You have Galladay and Sutton, and looks like you're going to go with another receiver here, Brent.
Yeah, I went with DK Metcalf. In a redraft league, I like the big, tall receivers, and he came on strong with Russell Wilson. I'm looking for points. I probably should have went running back, but, I mean, I'm not going to pass up a 15 to 20 point per game with Metcalf's upside. I think with Carson banged up, you got Penny banged up. They didn't do anything in the offseason. Maybe they finally let Wilson throw the ball a lot more.
Brent, listen, man, I appreciate you chiming in with us tonight. I'll let you get back to your draft. Good luck in all your leagues this season. Have fun with the rookie drafts coming up here shortly as well. And I know you'll dominate. I know you'll do well. And enjoy the rest of the drafting season, man.
All righty. Thank you all for having me on.
Brent Studebaker, Stud Dynasty himself, drafting from the 5 spot in the Genesis League tonight. Always good to hear from him. Kenny Galladay went off the board after Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Kenny Galladay going at the 305 spot tonight. Jonathan Taylor, the second rookie running back, and the third straight running back goes to Real Man of Genius. That's Brian Studebaker, as he goes Kenyan Drake, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor to start. Pat Mahomes right after that to Austin Martin, followed by DJ Moore, Le'Veon Bell, and Amari Cooper. And then you have a pair of running backs, former first-round picks, slipping to the late third tonight. David Johnson at the 311, Melvin Gordon at the 312. As we continue on, David, huge receiver run here in the 4th round. Allen Robinson and Odell Beckham kick things off. Wow, Odell Beckham has a 4th-round pick. Just crazy to think. James Conner right after that to the 26 Packer franchise. Then you have 5 straight receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, then A.J. Brown, Adam Thielen right after that, followed by Cooper Kupp, and then Cortland Sutton, who we talked about with Brent Studebaker earlier. Then it was Austin Hooper and a trio of running backs to finish off the 4th round. That's Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, and Chris Carton. Okay, so let's talk about this right here. Dave, I know you're not a big Beckham fan, but at the 402, can you get on board with that, given the receivers that were already off the board, or would you still be shying away?
Yeah, I think it's pretty tough. I mean, there's risk with Beckham, and there's so much upside. I'm just looking at the players that came after him. I probably would have gone a different direction. I'm just guessing that's how I would have gone. I just don't. Beckham needs to have more than like 2 seasons and two good seasons and more than one in the last 5 years in order for me to take him. I still just don't trust him.
Let's talk about the end of the 4th round here. Cam Akers and DeAndre Swift, a pair of running backs. Rookie running backs. Which one do you like better for redraft purposes this year? Is it Akers out in Los Angeles or DeAndre Swift in Motor City running with Kerryon Johnson?
It's actually a really good question. Man, I think I would lean towards Akers, and that is more of an indictment of Henderson not emerging or proving himself or doing much of anything last year. Still have to deal with Malcolm Brown too, by the way, so that's another consideration. Kerryon Johnson's healthy. He and Swift, they're actually kind of similar backs. And again, I don't know that DeAndre Swift's going to take that job from him right away, if at all.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he does. But here's the thing I know about Kerryon Johnson. That dude runs so hard and he gets banged up a lot. And I just feel like that might be all that Swift needs to sort of become the 1A in that backfield and start touching the ball 15 to 20 times a game.
You know what I discovered this week? This is a personal story. Is that, I keep saying, remember I've said in the past I have Kerryon Johnson on one of my dynasty teams. Actually, I don't. I traded him last year. So
nice.
I'm very happy about it.
Do you remember who you got for him or no?
It was a receiver like a Stephon Diggs or somebody like that.
Oh, even better.
It was one of those types of guys. But yeah, it was it's great. Worked out well.
We are to the end of the fifth round here. I'm going to take you through it. A pair of tight ends kick things off with Stuart Keene drafting his second tight end, Darren Waller, at the 501. And then Mike and Todd Aaron getting their second tight end with Evan Ingram at the 502. So now we should start seeing some of the tight ends get pushed up, or maybe these guys continue to let them slip. It's always difficult when one team takes two tight ends in the top 5 rounds. Now we have two teams doing it. Devon Singletary is the third running back drafted by Kern Reeve, followed by Kareem Hunt, the fourth running back, taken by Dustin Hayek tonight. You heard the DK Metcalf pick live on the air with Brent Studebaker. Brian Studebaker follows it up with Devontae Parker to go with his Cooper Kupp. So those are his starting two receivers to go along with a trio of high-volume running backs. Raheem Mostert is the second running back off the board to Austin Martin. And then you have Robert Woods being the third receiver selected by Biplab Mandel there. Hunter Henry is going to be Robert Marshall's tight end here, starting tight end, as he goes off the board. That is pick 509. Calvin Ridley is the number 2 receiver for Atlanta. He's the number 2 receiver for 26 Packer. That is, of course, Jake Valish and Clint Ostermiller. Valish, we're going to mention, he's not in Revelations tonight, but he is the defending champ of that league, so congrats to him. J.K. Dobbins and David Montgomery finish off the round. So let's talk here, Dave, and I'm going to go all the way back to that 501 pick. It's going to escape me. I was trying to remember this earlier today, but Oakland drafts Henry Ruggs as the first receiver off the board this year. Then they go with Brian Edwards later on, a guy that's come up again and again on this show as a rookie to watch out for. They also take another receiver. They took 3, and that's his name is escaping me, whoever that receiver was. They went with, of their first 4 picks in the 2020 NFL Draft, they selected 3 wide receivers. And I'm kind of curious how you think that affects Darren Waller's stock this year. Maybe for Dynasty it's not so great for him, but if you're right with these rookies facing a pretty stiff learning curve, trying to get in and get acclimated to the NFL, maybe Waller's becoming a bargain, a guy who is one of the top finishers at tight end in the FFPC scoring last year. Now you can get him off the board at the 501. Seems like a pretty good value to me.
I like Darren Waller quite a bit, actually. I think that's a good pick there. It's a good pick in general. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of the roster construction that he's doing
with Stuart Keene at the 1 spot.
Yeah, okay. Again, not totally trying to dog on his draft. I just there's no yellow on his team yet, so that's a concern.
Right.
So I think I probably would have gone different directions a little bit, but yeah, I like Waller quite a bit. Comparatively, I'm not as big of a fan of taking Evan Ingram that he's recovering from the offseason stuff, and you already had Ertz, so I'm not really not as big of a fan of that.
Okay. All right. Well, good stuff there. Let's go to some good stuff from the 803. We're going to head out there. What is up? You are on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour with Balky and Dave. Who is this?
Hey, guys. This is Brian Studebaker, Real Man of Genius. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. We're going to have back-to-back Studebakers on the show tonight, which I always appreciate. Brian, how's the draft falling in for you? Is it going according to plan?
You guys share minutes on your phone? Did you just pass the phone over?
Yeah, I don't even know where he's at. I think he may be hanging out with a girlfriend or something tonight. So, but yeah, no, draft's going well. I ended up starting out three running backs, 2 wide receivers. I'm actually on the clock, kind of as we're talking here, and
go for it.
I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually need to address the tight end position, and it's going to definitely be a little bit of a reach, probably going to catch some people's attention, but I think we got a year 2 tight end that's kind of primed for a big breakout in TJ Hawkinson.
Whew. You got your pick in. Good
Hawkinson, yeah, I love it. It's just selling the drama.
Yeah, no, we got it. We got it in there right before the buzzer, but I know that one's definitely a little bit early in comparison with ADP. But I think we're going to see a major step forward from Hawkinson. I mean, he flashed a little bit last year. That whole offense was really cranking when Stafford was playing early in the year before he got injured, and I just the pedigree with Hawkinson and the whole 9 yards. I think we're going to see a pretty major step forward from him this year. It was either him or the gentleman that was just taking Gronk, but I think Gronk's going to be kind of deployed in specialized packages. So went with the upside young guy.
Yeah, I'm with you on Gronkowski. I just don't know what to expect from him. Let's talk about your first round pick in Kenyan Drake here, Brian, because I think the top 5 picks were sort of they weren't necessarily surprises, and I'm not saying Drake was a surprise, but of those top 6.
Yes, it was.
Okay, well then it was a surprise according to the Dizzle. But Kenyan Drake, what was it about him that made you want to grab him at the 106?
Opportunity share, tempo of the offense, you name it. I mean, I think the decision really came down to, am I taking Michael Thomas or am I going to take one of the kind of that second tier of running backs, and the second tier being the guys like Drake, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, that group. And frankly, with what Drake showed us at the end of last year, I don't see how anybody can kind of dispute it. I know it was a relatively small sample size, but it's not like he didn't flash when he was in Miami being, dramatically underused or, underwhelmed in the typical Adam Gase fashion. So Drake flashed, and we're playing to win. And I mean, he's not going to be there at pick 18 for me. So I went ahead and kind of added him to the team.
Brian, what about this Jonathan Taylor pick in the 3rd round? Marlon Mack certainly was put on notice. Now he's behind the 8 ball. How soon is it before we start seeing Taylor take over that backfield as the alpha?
Yeah, it's definitely the theme of the night. I mean, these rookies are going to take a moment, but the reality is this. Indy's got the best offensive line in the league. He hits the hole as well as anyone that's out there. You're going to see Jonathan Taylor get going bright, very early in that offense, and I think by mid-season, not even mid-season, a quarter of the way in, it's going to be fully his show to kind of do as he will, as you could say. So I'm actually back on the clock here, guys. I guess I've been on the phone for a while, but it's kind of the joy of being in the 6 hole. So I'm actually going to take another. Excuse me. I'm going with another upside guy here. We're just kind of at the stage of the draft where we're going to do so. I actually went Keyshawn Vaughn for my 4th running back. With the way everything should fall here a little bit later in the draft, I'm playing to win here early on. I like the upside, obviously, in that offense, and his pass blocking is one of the things he's most well known for. And I just have a hard time believing that that Vaughn's not going to be able to beat out Ronald Jones in an offense that should be able to move the ball down the field kind of at will this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody took Ronald Jones
go
1 round earlier than you did. So it looks like you guys are going to have some more crap to talk back and forth to each other during Tampa Bay games.
Yeah. Everybody's got a little brother.
Brian Studebaker joining us tonight. Brian, thank you so much. Appreciate you making the 2 picks on the air. We'll let you get back to it. Good luck this season. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Rookie draft start tomorrow. Best time of the year. Thanks.
That's right. Exciting stuff. Can't wait.
I can't wait. I'm probably going to have 50 trade reversals.
Well, there could be.
Hey, Kamish.
Right.
I fat-fingered this trade. Can you reverse it? Sure, I can.
Fat-fingered that trade should be a team name for somebody
that's
this year.
True.
Hey, let's we're going to head over to the Revelations draft here shortly, but before we do, let's head out to the 201 area code and talk with our next guest right now. Who do we have on the line?
Hey, it's Todd from PA. How are you?
Todd Burrow's joining us at Todd from PA on Twitter. It's good to talk to you, man. What are you thinking of Genesis this year? I don't believe you were in this league last year. What's it been like drafting with these guys tonight?
It's been different. It's a little looser than drafting the FVG that I drafted last night. Not terribly, but a little looser. I do want to talk about the Kenyan Drake thing, even though that's not my team, and I'm on the clock here in a second. I feel like once you get past the top 3 guys, that next tier is really close to me. And I think everyone gets so caught up in ADP. Last year, if you remember, in the Hardway draft, I took Derrick Henry at 2-2 and got an enormous amount of crap for it, and it turned out to be a very good pick. I just feel like if you have a bunch of guys on a tier, and Drake is definitely in that next tier somewhere, if that's your guy, go get him. He's not my guy at that point. But I'm going to defend the pick a little bit. If you feel that's your guy, go get him.
You're not going to find any argument from me on that. Go get your guys is my mantra. I'm totally down with that, Todd. You've been getting your guys tonight. Kind of a staggered approach. Running back, receiver, running back, receiver, running back, receiver. You varied it up here a little bit in the 7th round. But let's talk a little bit about what your expectations are for Joe Mixon. For the 2nd straight year, he's been a polarizing guy. It seems like everybody either loves him or hates him. I think you're closer to the love side, though.
I think you might be wrong. It's funny because when you're a high-volume best ball guy, you end up building a portfolio, and I'm starting to do more of these drafts, and I think that overall I'll probably be underweight on Mixon, but to get him at 111, I think what people don't understand a lot of times is your leverage for a guy who's in a situation like that, because he was going off the board 5th before you heard anything about his issues, right? He was going 1.5, 1.6, and then all of a sudden he started going a lot later because of the fear. So your leverage is all those other teams that you don't take him. So at 111, running backs go so quickly. I knew I would get a good wide receiver. I was hoping it would be Adams. It turned out to be Hopkins. It was just a pick where if he does play, if he doesn't hold out, and history normally teaches us that people don't they don't hold out. And so if he does hold out, all my other teams will be okay. But I just felt here that he was the best guy. If he does play, he was clearly the best guy on the board.
What about in the 3rd round, Todd, David Johnson, a guy who's no longer in Arizona but looks to be the man, at least at the outset of the season in Houston? I think a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it seems like a lot of people kind of downgrade him based on unfairly because of the trade that he was included in. But it's important to remember that he still has shown us some pretty good talent in the past, and now he's going to an offense where, he quite frankly is the focal point after Deshaun Watson. Talk a little bit about this David Johnson pick and why he was the right choice for you here at the 311.
Well, there's 2 things. The first one is, people always tend that one of the things, to be good at fantasy football, you have to find a few niches. Mine is that I tend to see things that, I don't get overwhelmed by the last thing I saw. The last thing I saw was David Johnson looking terrible but he was hurt. Before he got hurt, games 1 to 6, and then the second thing is, look at how much work Bill O'Brien gave the ghost of Carlos Hyde. And now you've got DJ, there's no argument he's a better back than Hyde. He's got better receiving chops. And Bill O'Brien now also on top of that has the whole thing that he traded Hopkins for Johnson. He's invested in him doing well. To get a bell cow running back in the 3rd round, you're either going to get a rookie who you don't know what you're going to get yet, or you're going to get a guy with some red flags. And I just felt that was a good spot for his red flags.
Todd, I like your analysis on Kenyan Drake. Who's been your favorite pick so far tonight from the 11 spot?
Boy, I am not thrilled with my draft right now. I really wanted Ridley, and he went. I ended up taking Dobbins. I guess Will Fuller at 7-11 is a really interesting pick. I think that Will Fuller is, again, that big if, but if he is healthy in that offense with Deshaun Watson, he could easily pay off 2nd round value. So if he's going to play, you're going to play him. And if he's hurt, you're not going to play him. So in the 7th round, what you hope is you build enough of a core of a team that your 7th round pick, when he exceeds expectation, he's adding value and helping you to win.
Hey, I got a piece of advice. Why don't you ship off to the Texans, just ship off like a foam roller care of Will Fuller. You could just send it to him. Maybe he'll start using it and his hamstrings won't be messed up all season.
Well, I mean, look, I was on the phone with you guys and a couple things happened. I had that to do over again. I might have went running back with one of those 2 picks. Not thrilled with my draft so far. But again,
I think your draft is fine, actually. I don't even mind the Will Fuller pick.
No, I think I've got a lot of talent. If this was 3 years ago, I would have the nuts team. But it's not 3 years ago. So, I think there's a lot of upside here. I think that people are underestimating DeAndre Hopkins and underestimating what he could do in that offense because we got to see flashes of it last year. And what was the one thing that really held that team back last year? The ability to convert in the red zone. To get those touchdowns, they were giving up settling for so many field goals. A guy like Hopkins, Fitz just isn't what he was anymore. I think Hopkins is, not only going to be a great safety blanket for Kyler, and I think that offense in the second year is going to be really good. I'm real excited to see what Hopkins does there. I know there's this stat when guys change teams, they're not as effective, but I'm excited for Hopkins.
Well, we're excited to see the rest of this draft from you, Todd. Well, of course, we all follow you on Twitter at Todd from PA. Thanks so much for chiming in tonight. Good luck. Keep doing what you're doing, man. We always appreciate your Twitter timeline. A lot of good insight there. And enjoy drafting season, dude.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate what you guys do as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're awesome in the hard way Twitter chat, by the way, Todd. So thank you. I enjoy that, even though I don't post in there much.
Well, I left. I got into a fight with the guy, but we won't go there. But
that's right. That's right.
I appreciate, but that's neither here nor there. Hey, I love you guys, and we'll see you down the road. Maybe we'll do the hard way draft this year.
Ooh,
yeah, sounds good.
That'd be fun. Thanks, Todd. Todd Burrows, ladies and gentlemen, at Todd from PA on Twitter. You can follow him there. I have switched it to the Revelations draft on the YouTube live stream. By the way, if you want to check that out, it's youtube.com/High Stakes Fantasy Football. That is up right now. And Dave, I'm going to kind of leave this up to you. Do you want to go, just pick this up at like the 6th or the 7th round, or do you want to do a little team analysis here? We're kind of in uncharted territory with the handling 3 drafts equally and a 60-second clock.
I'm fine with whatever.
Good either way. Let's go. Let's continue to go pick by pick. Just to introduce who the players are here tonight. In the Revelations draft. Ron Meyer, 2-packer, drafting first tonight. Therapy Alpaca Picasso, that's Kyle Leaf picking second. The overhyped sleeper himself, Dan Williamson, in third. Run the Table, run by Jake Venuti, is in fourth. Our good buddy Ray Chung, Hong Kong, is selecting fifth. And then Zeb Cap is picking sixth in tonight's draft. Biplab Mandel is drafting both the Genesis and Revelations draft. He is in the 7th spot in this one. Another good buddy of ours, Fantasy Mojo's Darren Armani, selecting 8th. Aunt Jemima, that's John Terry. By the way, John Terry selecting 9th in Revelations this year. Davey selected 9th in Revelations last year, too. Interesting stuff
1 in
there.
12 chance.
The Hallam Hammers, Shane P. Hallam selecting 10th. Andrew Schellenberg's Clutch Like Shelley at 11. And, of course, Vince Staffolino selecting 12th tonight in Revelations. That's where we're at. By the way, I should bring this up tonight. Now that we've announced both of them, Zeb Cap and Kern Reeve are both good buddies. They've drafted together a lot over the years. Kern is in Genesis and Zeb is in Revelations. They have a bet of who's going to score the most points this year, and whoever loses, if Kern were to lose, well, let's say this. If Zeb is to lose, he has to put a bumper sticker of Kern's choosing that is going to be politically themed on his car. That's if Zeb loses. If Kern loses, Zeb is going to make Kern wear a Make America Great Again Donald Trump hat for an entirety of one of his lectures, as he is a professor at
called Cornell.
Cornell. I wanted to say Dartmouth, and I knew that wasn't it. Cornell. Okay, so anyway, and so I don't know if I'm revealing this, if I should be revealing this on the air or not, but Zeb showed me a link of the hat, and it is not the red baseball cap MAGA hat. It is something larger. It's a
mega.
It's a mega hat. Yeah, exactly what it is. So this is something to follow throughout the season. Let's get into it right now. Kick things off with the sixth round, Dave. This was Kyler Murray going to Staffolino as his number one quarterback, the third quarterback off the board, followed by Tyler Lockett to Schellenberg, and then Terry McLaurin goes to Shane Hallam. Evan Engram is going to be the number one tight end for John Terry this year. A trio of running backs go after that. Damian Williams to Darren Armani, DeAndre Swift to Biplab Mandel is his number two running back, and the number two running back for Zeb Cap will be Kareem Hunt. He goes with Hunt to pair with David Montgomery. Devontae Parker to Ray Chung after that, followed by Calvin Ridley and Cam Akers to Dan Williamson. Then you have Devon Singletary to Kyle Leith, and then Raheem Mostert, the final pick. Excuse me, I switched rounds there on you. I'm sorry. This is T.Y. Hilton to run the table, and then Keyshawn Vaughn to Dan Williamson, Hunter Henry, and then Deebo Samuel to Packer. Sorry about that. My apologies. Okay, so let's talk about this round, Dave. There is a lot of talk that Michael Pittman could be the number one receiver sooner rather than later in Indianapolis, dethroning T.Y. Hilton. Your thoughts on that, Dave? Do you see that happening, or is Hilton still going to be the number one receiver, in your opinion, for the Colts for the majority of the 2020 season?
For 2020, I definitely see it as T.Y. Hilton. I mean, I just don't see a possibility of Pittman all of a sudden as a rookie with probably a limited training camp coming in and beating out a 9-10-year veteran in T.Y. Hilton.
Let's talk about Zeb Cap's pick of Kareem Hunt. You know, after Hunt came back from his suspension last year, we saw Chubb's workload really got hit. And now they have Hunt for a whole season. You see that as more like a 50-50 timeshare? Because I'm a little bit nervous about that between Chubb and Hunt.
To be honest with you, I didn't own any shares of Hunt at all last year. And right now, I'm going to be totally honest, I have no idea. Because I wasn't paying attention to Kareem Hunt and had little interest in him until I'm seeing him go in the sixth round here. So I'm curious myself. What do you think? Because I don't really know.
I think Chubb is going too high, and I think Hunt's going too low. I definitely think that Chubb will be the guy over him this year, but I don't necessarily, you look at where he went in this draft. Nick Chubb he went to Ray Chung there at the 208, and then Kareem Hunt slipped all the way to the mid-sixth round to Zeb Cap. And I just look at it from the standpoint of what transpired last year. And I don't know if this was a case of them wanting to keep Chubb healthy. It's not like they went to the playoffs or anything like that. I just think that Hunt's a dynamic player, and you want to get him on the field as much as possible.
Yeah, between weeks 10 and 17, which granted I maybe shouldn't have counted 17, Chubb averaged 12.97 points per game. Hunt averaged 12.67 points per game. So only a difference of 0.3 points per game. Very, very small, actually. In week 17, they both had like 5 or 6. They probably barely played. So interesting. That's interesting.
As far as ADP goes, Chubb normally is going at the 204, and then you have Kareem Hunt normally going at the 610. I think that those have to get closer as we march through drafting season, Dave.
Yeah, when you think about it, you have to kind of. I mean, if you can't explain away why their production was so similar last year in that second half of the season, then you really can't make the argument for why Chubb should be going so much sooner than Hunt. Now, this is me just talking about it here and learning as we go. So this is great.
That's how we always learn. Let's learn some more. We're going to go to the 412 area code right now and talk to our latest caller as we cover the Revelations draft here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Who's this?
This is Shane Hallam picking out of the 10th spot.
Shane, I apologize that we couldn't get to you sooner. I appreciate your patience, man. How is the draft treating you tonight?
I think it's going pretty well. I got a lot of guys around me that I know well and I'm in dynasty leagues with well, so they're sniping me at every turn. But it's always a good group. But I feel like my team's coming out well. I haven't drafted a rookie yet, which is rare for me, so that's always good.
What about let's move to okay. So Shane's team thus far, he takes Kittle in the first, Austin Eckler in the second, Chris Carson in the third. His number one receiver is Cortland Sutton in the fourth. I want to talk about your fifth round pick here. Because you end up taking Mark Ingram at the 5'10". One pick later, J.K. Dobbins goes. Was there any thought in your mind of deciding between those two Ravens running backs, or was it clearly Ingram for you there?
No, I think it was pretty clearly Ingram for me. I think we saw what he can do in that offense, especially early in the season. He's not super old, and I keep going back to if we don't have a training camp, we don't have a rookie camp. I mean, I think these rookies are going to be a big step behind the 8 ball. So I think Mark Ingram is going to get that load, especially early on. And so for an RB3 for a flex play in an offense that scores as much as Baltimore does, I'll take Mark Ingram all day. And I think at best, Dobbins is going to take half the season to even get up to speed, if he can even pass, Gus Edwards.
Just as kind of a blanket question, Shane, do you actually think that it'd be strategically advantageous in, let's say, and I get, I hate to use a blanket statement, but if you just said to yourself, I'm not drafting any rookies in any redraft this year, do you think that'd be like a positive expectation type decision?
I think it's smart, and I'm the rookie guy. I do all the NFL draft work. I'm in way too many dynasty leagues, in the 500 number one in the FFP. I have the 5 of the first 6 picks. I love rookies, but in redraft this year, I think it's smart to not take them at least the first 10, 11, 12 rounds, to not put in that type of value. You can take your shots later. I think at almost any position, running back might be the one where they can kind of catch up, but I think receiver is going to be really tough. Tight end, just forget about it. And quarterback, you could probably deal with it. But I think it's smart to take these veterans, and even guys that haven't switched teams, I think it's really smart to do.
Yep.
Talking with Shane Hallam here tonight as we cover the Revelations Draft live on the HSFF Hour. Shane, let's talk about Terry McLaurin here, because you would expect him to make a leap as far as production-wise goes in year 2 of his career, and it's year 2 of Dwayne Haskins as well. You get yourself a number 1 receiver at the 603. Your expectations for the likelihood of a McLaurin breakout this year, even more than he did last year?
I think it's possible, because I don't think that offense can get really any worse. And the fact that Washington did not address the tight end position in the draft, they really didn't draft a receiver until later in the 3rd day of Antonio Gandy-Golden. There's not much competition for McLaurin. I like Ron Rivera as a coach. I like the offense they're installing. I think there'll be an improvement from Dwayne Haskins. Once again, I don't think he can get worse. So to me, to have McLaurin as a wide receiver 2, I think there's a nice floor of production for him. If they are pretty bad, we know what he did last year. And I think there's a high ceiling. If Washington's better, then McLaurin's numbers should go up. So I think it could be a potential steal. It's a possibility that he ends up as a top 15 receiver if this offense gets going a little bit.
Balky, real quick, who's the number 1 tight end for Washington?
Somebody not named Jordan Reed. Quite frankly, I don't know.
Shane, do you know who the number 1 tight end for? I'm looking at Football Guy's depth chart here. Do you know who their number 1 tight end is?
Jeremy Sprinkle, I would say.
Oh, Jeremy Sprinkle.
Jeremy Tinkle. We're going to call him Tinkle.
Jeremy Sprinkle.
Okay? Yeah, I'm sure. Shane, final question here before we let you get back to the draft. Every day that goes by, New England does not add a quarterback. It looks more and more likely that Jarrett Stidham is going to be the heir apparent for Tom Brady, at least for 2020. How do you handicap that backfield, with James White, Damian Harris, and so on and so forth? You take Sony Michel here. What's your expectations for how this is going to shake out?
I don't think Sony Michel's a very good football player. I think he kind of sucks. But if I know Bill Belichick, they're just going to pound that rock and probably lose a handful of games, maybe win some on the defense on the running game. It didn't seem like they trust Damian Harris at all. James White will kind of do the pass-catching thing. I think we see Sony Michel with high volume, goal line, touchdowns. I think he's going to be the guy. I love getting him as an RB4, and, you can fill him in for a bye week or so. So I think it's going to be a lot of running this year for New England. I think those running backs are criminally underrated for redraft this year.
Shane, if you were the FFPC commissioner and you had to review a protested dynasty trade with Sony Michel involved, would you overturn this trade? Sony Michel on one side for a 2020 109 rookie pick and a 2021 first.
It's pretty bad, but yeah, I'm always on the side, no collusion, let it go. But man,
that's
my God.
We overturned. We overturned that one. That one we had to overturn.
You follow him on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen, at Shane P. Hallam. Check out his work at Draft Site and, of course, Fake Pigskin. Appreciate you popping on, Shane. Enjoy the rest of the draft and enjoy drafting season this summer. Always good to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for doing the podcast. Great work.
Thank you so much, Shane. We certainly appreciate that as Revelations moves on past the halfway point here in the 11th round. We'll get back to the pick-by-pick coverage in just a second, but I do want to get to the 941 as we're going to go out there and talk to our next guest here on our live Revelations draft coverage. Who am I speaking with?
Am I on right now?
Yes, you are.
Hi, you're speaking to Liz. I'm actually in the Apocalypse draft right now. I am drafting out of the 7th spot.
Liz, you were in Revelations last year, right?
No, I was in Apocalypse last year. I actually won Apocalypse.
You were in Apocalypse. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. That is fantastic. That's good to hear. Liz, we're going to get to Apocalypse here in a little bit. Before we do, can you tell us how you think your draft is going over there?
I think so far so good. I like my team. I like how things are falling into place here.
Who did you end up taking? Who did you end up taking as your first round pick?
Kelsey.
Travis Kelce, and obviously the first tight end off the board. Is that something that you've always made a priority of trying to get one of the elite tight ends early?
In FFPC, you've got to the premium tight end scoring. You've got to go with. You got to get one of the top 3 tight ends. If they fall to you, you got to take them.
We were talking earlier. We were talking earlier, Liz, about the decision that some owners will have to make if they're going to go with a tight end. And Kittle and Kelce are off the board. Who do you go with, Mark Andrews or Zach Ertz? How do you fall in on that?
Andrews. Absolutely Andrews.
Just because of the dynamic upside, or what's the reasoning?
I mean, you look at the Baltimore offense. I mean, they're phenomenal. And then you've got Zach Ertz, who, you've got Goddard eating into some of his targets. So, I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but I go with Andrews ahead of Ertz.
What sort of, and I don't know how many drafts you've done so far this season, Liz, but you obviously are doing Apocalypse right now, defending champ of that. What sort of stood out to you, and we'll get to Apocalypse shortly, we'll see for ourselves, what stood out to you in that draft? Any surprises? Anybody slipping? Anybody being overdrafted?
No, I've been watching Miles Sanders climb, and I was tempted to take him, and then I just, I can't pass up Kelce, but, Sanders has been a surprise in the past few weeks. Godwin going to 210, that's a little bit of a surprise. I like seeing how David Johnson's moved up, but that's not really that wasn't too much of a surprise. No, I think Eckler's been sometimes going in the first round, so I guess it's about what it should be.
Talking with Liz Ballard here, who's drafting in the Apocalypse draft. Liz, let's talk. You mentioned Godwin going at the 210 in Apocalypse. Let's briefly talk about the Buccaneers here, because it's totally a different offense than last year. Obviously, Tom Brady is now going to be throwing passes to both Evans, Chris Godwin. They draft Tyler Johnson this year, and they still have O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and Rob Gronkowski coming to town. Are you worried at all if you're going to be drafting a Buccaneer that you might be overdrafting him, given that Brady's talented enough to spread the ball around, making sure that everybody puts up numbers rather than have a guy like Evans or Godwin dominate targets?
I'm willing to take that risk. I think that's going to be just a smoking offense. So, I mean, I like having Evans. I like Godwin. I like Evans. O.J. Howard, he's got to prove it to me, and then with Gronk coming in, you just don't know which Gronk are you going to get. Healthy Gronk, who's going to be, a favorite of Brady, or are you going to get somebody who's been out of football for a year and who's, how many surgeries has he had,
Right, yeah, exactly. All good points, Liz. We certainly appreciate talking with you here tonight. We'll turn over our coverage to the Apocalypse draft in about 15 minutes, and we'll take a look at your team and as well as how everything else is shaking out. But good luck the rest of the way. Thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Liz Ballard, ladies and gentlemen, calling in from the Apocalypse draft. We'll shift over to that in a second. Yes, Dave.
That draft's going to be over soon.
Really? What round are they in?
18.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we'll definitely do How are they in the 18th and Revelations is still in the 12th? Did the feed go out? I'm watching the YouTube feed right now. I think it's still updating.
They're drafting quickly.
That's crazy. Well, we'll get to that in a little. Actually, I think that would be a good way to round up this show, is to talk about just team analysis from the Apocalypse Drafters. Sure. All right, let's get back into it here. We kind of left off in the 7th round. I want to kind of skip ahead a little bit, and we'll go to the 9th round, Dave, and kind of talk about what's going on with Revelations here. Two-Packer gets Tevin Coleman as his number 4 running back.
He's still in the league?
At the 901, yes. Two-Packer is still in Revelation. John Brown goes off after that, the Buffalo receiver.
Coleman.
Yes, I got it. John Brown at the 902 tonight to Kyle Leith, followed by James White and Zach Moss. Going to Jake Venuti. Then you have T.J. Hawkinson going to Ray Chung as his number 3 tight end, Tariq Cohen, Christian Kirk, and Deshaun Watson off the board after that. Watson going to Fantasy Mojo. CeeDee Lamb, an interesting guy, to Aunt Jemima, who's loading up on the receivers here after drafting a very running back heavy team early. Jamison Crowder off the board. Then Ronald Jones goes to Andrew Schellenberg. And then you have Emmanuel Sanders rounding things off to Vince Staffolino. Interesting round there, Dave, and we talked a little Hawkinson. Let's talk a little Zach Moss here, because I was kind of high on Devon Singletary, and I was not that high on Zach Moss in the pre-drafting process. And I think I still like Devon Singletary this year for the aforementioned reasons we talked about, how difficult it's going to be for rookies to come in and make an impact with the shortened summer. But your thoughts on the Singletary-Moss backfield? Are you willing to say Singletary dominates that for touches there too?
Yeah, I would think so. That's my opinion. I've never been a big Singletary guy, but I mean, everyone likes him. He did really well last year. Moss also was not the best athlete in the world, but I think they could complement each other. Moss is a little bit thicker. But I would definitely go Singletary. I mean, he's getting drafted, 4 rounds earlier, so it makes sense. What
about the philosophy change in Buffalo with them giving up all that draft capital to acquire Stephon Diggs? Because they already had a deep threat in John Brown, who had a pretty good 2019 season, and now you bring in Stephon Diggs, who can definitely get behind defenders, and you still have Cole Beasley over the middle as well. Are you worried about that affecting Singletary, or is that actually going to be a good thing for him?
I'm not that concerned about affecting the run game necessarily too much. My concern overall, I would like to think it would actually help their passing game.
Right.
Diggs will be nice. Diggs isn't only a deep threat, though. I think he can actually make some catches over the middle, not as well as Beasley, but I kind of think Diggs is a little bit underrated. I mean, maybe he went in the 5th here. I think he went in the 6th or the 602 in the other draft. I think that's not a bad spot for him.
Yeah, ADP is the 512 for Diggs right now as far as FFPC drafts go. Let's get into the 10th round here, Dave. Jerry Jeudy kicking things off to Vince Staffolino. Mike Williams, who just had his 5th-year option picked up by the Los Angeles Chargers, to Andrew Schellenberg here. Then Ian Thomas, the number 2 tight end for the Hallam Hammers. He pairs with George Kittle quite nicely there, like wine and pasta. I don't know. Marvin Jones off the board to Aunt Jemima after that, followed by Tony Pollard, the running back handcuffed to Ezekiel Elliott. Darren Armani grabbing him there. Darren Armani grabs Tony Pollard. I wonder if this is because he sees all these tweets and all these people talking about Tony Pollard's season and everything like that. He's been looking at it for 14 months now. I wonder if that affected him there at all.
Could be.
Philip Lindsay right after that, the backup running back in Denver now that Melvin Gordon's in town. Eric Ebron is the 2nd tight end drafted by Zeb Cap tonight to go with Tyler Higbee, followed by Henry Ruggs to Ray Chung. Jack Doyle and Blake Jarwin, a pair of tight ends, go to Venuti and Williamson, and then Darrell Henderson and McCole Hardman finishing off the round there in round 10 of Revelations. Dave, would you, we talked about the rookies. Would you be at some point you'd have to take a rookie. If you're going to take a rookie receiver and you had your pick and you made up your mind you're going to go with one, who's the best redraft rookie receiver? Because Henry Ruggs was the first one off the board, but I think a lot of the pundits did not suggest that he would be the top receiver in this draft. CeeDee Lamb, maybe the most talented, but now he goes to Dallas with Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. And then you have Jerry Jeudy, who's now competing with Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, and KJ Hamler. Or is it somebody else?
I might make the argument that Denzel Mims might actually have the best path to starting right away for the Jets, and he might be the guy that does the best as a rookie.
And we haven't seen him go up. Well, I'm sure he's been taking an apocalypse now. They're probably in round 24.
I think Mims went off the board in Genesis right around when we left.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and now is...
No, that's just something I thought of off the top of my head. I don't have a list in front of me.
Yeah, I don't see him in Revelations yet, but
No.
you could be right about Genesis. I don't have that board up anymore.
It doesn't make sense that it would be CeeDee Lamb, given that he's going to be behind, or he'll be on the field as the third wide receiver. But given who he's having to deal with Amari Cooper,
right,
and Gallup.
Moving on to the 11th round here, Jonnu Smith is Two Packers' pick as his number 1 tight end. Which, by the way, we should mention that while Two Packer did win the hard-way draft last year, he also entered Genesis and finished lower than 11th. And I'll just leave it at that. In Genesis last year, it was not promising for Two Packer. But Jonnu Smith, what do you make of that? Waiting until round 11 to take your first tight end? If you're trying to set the ADP, I'm not sure this is going to be setting it.
Well, he is, and he also took Greg Olsen, and those are 2 starting tight ends for the 2 teams. Olsen, you're getting a little desperate there, and Smith, you really do need him to break. You need him to break out. That's a little later than even I would be looking to do.
Have you ever thought about, because we talk about picking running backs off the waiver wire, quarterbacks off the waiver wire, is that a sound strategy in the FFPC for tight ends, or is that more of a losing proposition?
Almost always losing proposition, except for last year. Almost every big champion grabbed Higbee, but that almost never happens.
Right?
That's true. Seriously, like a 1 in a decade occurrence.
Yeah. No, you're right. It normally doesn't happen at tight end because the thing is, the tight ends are scooped up. Anybody with a heartbeat is usually scooped up, and Higbee, for whatever reason, was out there. And I think part of the reason was Everett broke out last year for the first part of the season until he got hurt, and then sort of everybody dropped Higbee. And then all of a sudden he's out there and never gets hurt. So, which was crazy given the receivers that the Rams had last year too. It's just, you're right, 1 in a decade is accurate. Sterling Shepard at the 11:02 to Kyle Leaf, followed by Anthony Miller. Irv Smith is going to be the backup tight end for Jake Venuti, and then Latavius Murray goes to Ray Chung. Duke Johnson goes off the board at the 11:06 to 1 Zeb Cap. Brashad Perriman. Let's talk about this to Biplab Mandel. You like Denzel Mims as the Jets receiver. They did sign Perriman, but it wasn't for big money. The fact that Perriman is a veteran, does that help his cause at all as being the number 1 receiver? Is he just too short on talent when comparing to Denzel Mims?
Well, it definitely helps that he's a veteran and that he's played in the NFL before. If I had to choose between the 2, I would choose Perriman over Mims, but the question was whether it was the rookie.
Right. That's how I phrase it. Okay, next pick, Qual Armstead. Now, the Jaguars have been...
Tell me this news, Balky.
They obviously declined the 5th-year option on Fournette.
Yeah.
They didn't do a whole lot in the draft. They did sign Chris Thompson today, the pass-catching running back for Washington. And you're probably like, who is that? He's always hurt. I don't know who that is.
I know who he is. He's the guy who's still on my Gridiron Legends team right now.
Good God. Well, that actually might be a Sharky play to keep him on board.
Yeah.
So you have... Qual Armstead, who's the backup there, and Jacksonville didn't really make any waves at running back, either in free agency or the draft. They've been shopping Fournette around, Dave. If they can't trade him, is he still locked into the workload he had last year, or would they want to develop Qual Armstead to make that more of instead of like a 90 or like an 85-15 split, maybe make it more of like a 70-30 split or a 65-35 split?
I don't see it happening. I guess it's possible. I just don't see that happening.
Okay.
Armstead is just a guy.
A guy who is not a guy goes off with the next pick, Preston Williams. I know you like this guy. Looked awesome last year till he got hurt.
Yes.
And then Devontae Parker sort of took over. And the ADPs are pretty wide when you're talking about those 2 Dolphins receivers. Devontae Parker, on average, going at the 602. Preston Williams, Dave, is falling all the way to the 1201 on average. No question to me who the better value is. Even though he's coming off the injury, give me Preston Williams.
Yeah, all day long. I totally agree. Preston Williams looked better in his rookie year than Devontae Parker looked at any point during his first 4 years in his NFL career.
Yeah, the rare 5th-year breakout for Devontae, or 4th-year breakout for Devontae
Was it
Parker.
His 4th?
I think it was his 4th.
All right, so maybe his first 3 years, he never looked as good as Preston Williams did. But Parker did look good last year later in the season.
Yeah. Justin Jefferson off the board after that. Naheem Hines to Andrew Schellenberg. And then Alexander Madison, the Dalvin Cook handcuff to Vince Staffolino. All right, let's get into the 12th round here. Golden Tate is Staffolino's pick, followed by Chase Edmonds. N'Keal Harry going off to Shane Hallam as his number 6 receiver. Josh Allen is the first quarterback selected by Aunt Jemima. That's John Terry. Jalen Reagor, rookie receiver for Philadelphia. Field stretcher there going to Fantasy Mojo. Interesting that he takes the Eagle. Anthony McFarland. This is a guy, we need to talk about him. Anthony McFarland for the Steelers. I believe he was a 3rd or 4th round pick, so not a pedigree guy. But Dave, I guess you're more of a James Conner fan than I am. Jalen Samuels hasn't really done a ton. He's had a couple of good games. Benny Snell has not done much there.
Okay, I thought Benny Snell was like the super god from last year.
First of all, I did not say he was a super god.
Not you, but I'm saying, everyone was like, oh, God, Benny Snell is so great. And then Jalen Samuels is this. Connor's never amount to this. Now they draft another kind of half-crappy running back.
Yeah.
They should get their act together.
I don't think McFarland's half-crappy. I'll just tell you that.
I'm sure not. I'm also Benny Snell. This is the same thing that was being said last year.
All right. I did not like Benny Snell last year. I'll tell you that.
Okay,
right
but
now, from the get-go.
You did. Okay. Then playing devil's advocate or whatever it was, you talked about, there was a lot of discussion about Benny Snell versus Jalen Samuels, and that's fine. And then, by the way, James Conner today, or I think it was, even was tweeting, like, similar to the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance.
Yeah.
He said something like that it's not his last dance or something. So
right.
Connor's seeing the so-called writing on the wall. I think Conner actually might be all right. He might be the guy.
Okay.
If I'm not that concerned about the 4th guy on the totem pole. Behind,
I don't think he's going to be 4th for
guys.
long. That's just my feeling on it. James
so
Conner.
Always the next year they're going to draft a running back in the 4th round again.
Well, because they got to replace these guys that won't be on the team anymore.
Right. And the year after they'll draft from the 3rd and then the 4th.
Speaking of the 4th round, James Conner, 405 ADP right now. That's not bad.
That's definitely worth the risk.
Yeah.
Plus you can grab one. The problem is you don't have a good sure backup that you can count on.
Right. Well, at that point, I'd be fine with that. Because 4th round, it's like, you know what I mean? You should have 3 really good players.
Well, interestingly enough, the same exact team, Fantasy Mojo, drafts Derrick Henry in the 1st round and then just grabbed Darrington Evans in the 13th round.
Smart.
And boom, that's taken care of. Lock it up.
All right, let's lock up the 734 here as we're going to go out to the phone lines again and talk to our next guest here on the HSFF Hour. Who are we talking to?
Hey, guys, it's Fantasy Dum Dums, Rob Marshall.
Fantasy Dum Dums, Rob Marshall, the defending champ of the Genesis draft. Hey, I don't have the board up anymore, Rob. How far along are you guys? You guys almost done?
Yeah, we're in the 14th right now.
Okay, I got it. All right. So Rob, I'm going to give you. Yes, you're coming through.
Okay.
I want to give you the floor because I haven't gotten to your email that you sent me. But I'm going to give you the floor to talk a little bit about some Genesis and Revelations trivia, if you'd like to do that tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for just a little bit of kind of follow-up between the Genesis Revelations, where the 26ers made up about 58% of the teams, 14 of the 24 teams in Genesis and Revelations. Yet the top 7 scorers, when looking at the two leagues combined, were all 26ers. The 26ers had 10 of the top 12 teams in scoring. A 26er won Genesis, a 26er won Revelations. 2 Packer played in both leagues and came in last in both leagues. And then one 26er drafted both just like he did, and they made the playoffs. One, they were the 1st seed, another one, they were the 4th seed. So based on these results, I think the 26ers probably should be the ones setting ADP.
I got to tell you, man, in a court of law, I think that's pretty indisputable at this point.
Case closed.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Meyer can't handle the truth.
Right, Rob, we got to talk. We talked a little bit about your draft tonight, your personal draft, as you try to defend the belt in Genesis. How's it looking so far? What's been your favorite pick?
I like Juju in the 4th.
Yeah, bouncing back off of obviously his down year. He gets a healthy Ben Roethlisberger back. What about was there one pick that you made tonight, Rob, that you just kind of you didn't want to do it, but you felt it was the best choice at the time, but you don't feel real great about it?
I'm a sucker for Hunter Henry, so if he can stay healthy, I love it. But I just keep getting suckered in to drafting that guy. I think I took him in the 5th.
Do you think, talking about the Chargers, do you think Tyrod Taylor is the starter for the majority of the season there, or do you think Herbert's going to be in play to be throwing balls to Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry later on?
I think Herbert's going to be called upon. I think the fans, a lot of times, they'll start kind of pushing for him because Tyrod's been around too long and has really not done all that much anywhere. So
Talking with the Fantasy Dum-Dums, it is Rob Marshall. Yeah, no, you're probably right. I mean, obviously that he gets people a lot more excited than Tyrod Taylor will, looking at the Chargers. What's been the prevailing trend in the Genesis draft tonight? We talked about the Kenyan Drake pick. Obviously, that was a little bit of a surprise. I noticed the difference between Genesis and Revelations. Henry Muto actually pointed this out in the chat, that Davante Adams and DeAndre Hopkins were going at that 1-2 turn in Genesis, but in Revelations, they actually slipped to the mid to late second round. How do you fall in? We talked about Hopkins a lot. How do you fall in on Davante Adams this year as the Packers seemingly are trending towards more of a run-based team?
So I still like Adams because you still have the same quarterback. You still have Rodgers, who likes to chuck the ball last second of the game, come out the hero, and he's still going to do it. He still has a little Brett Favre in him who, can chuck that ball down the field, and those big number one receivers tend to perform well and have big 100-yard games, 2 touchdown type things, and that's what you need to perform in the playoffs.
Rob, I appreciate you giving us a call and busting out that trivia on us. I know we'll hear it from Tupac, or maybe on Twitter. I don't know if we'll hear from him on the show tonight. Good luck the rest of the way.
He's slurring too much right now.
He could be. No, he said he worked too long today, so it was interrupting his drinking.
Oh, that's too bad.
Rob, good luck the rest of the way. Enjoy the draft, man. Always good to talk to you, dude. Stay safe.
All right, thanks, guys. Rob
Marshall from the Fantasy Dum-Dums. That is the champion, the defending champion of the Genesis draft. We'll keep it going right now with the caller from the 603. 603, who are we talking to tonight?
Hey, guys, it's Eric Sisson, Pink Stripes, and Apocalypse.
Pink Stripes, good to talk to you, man. It just seems like yesterday we had you on the HSFF Hour. How is Apocalypse going? Is it over with?
Going. I've had cheeseburgers that took longer to eat. That was insane. I've never seen a brighter group of drafters. I think we knocked the thing out in like an hour and 8 minutes.
That's crazy. That is fantastic. Wow. So now you were picking, and we're about to go over to that draft board right now, and we're going to talk about it.
Let's just go.
But you had the number one pick there. I'm assuming you went McCaffrey. How did the rest of the draft shape up for you?
I kind of, for whatever reason, for all the drafts I do, I don't know why I never get you would think you have a 1 in 12 chance of getting the first round pick. Not in my case. I think I get it 1 out of every 80 drafts. So I've kind of always had this plan in my head. And Eric, if you remember, we talked about this in our interview back in around Thanksgiving. Is you asked me if I would ever consider taking Lamar Jackson in the second round. So I had to follow through with my word because I told you I would. And I said I'd follow up with a tight end. And, yeah, I know. I had to do it. I actually had a flashback when I got the number one pick notice a few days before the draft and said, well, this would be pretty cool to have McCaffrey, Jackson, and Mark Andrews, and just started out from there and went with it. And then I got a little bit, I think I had a couple too many drinks after that and just went a little tight end crazy and just decided to fill in from there.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So you must have just, when you got the number one pick tonight, like, oh, my goodness, my first share of McCaffrey of the whole season.
It makes life so simple because the rest of it, I've always figured you could draft the Madisons and the Pollards and Sony Michel and all these Darius guys, and I'll find someone that'll be behind someone that'll get hurt or something will happen that'll give me an RB2. But McCaffrey is basically like 2 running backs anyways. So with the FFP scoring the way it is, I went rounds 3, 4, 5. I went Andrews, Waller, and I'm a homer, so I took Gronk and just rolled the dice. And said, heck, I'm going to start 3 tight ends every week with Lamar and McCaffrey, and we'll fill in from there and see what happens.
It's kind of fun, though, because, with McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson, if they produce similarly to last year, if McCaffrey's 2 running backs, Lamar Jackson's like a running back and a quarterback. So you're seriously in the neighborhood of like 60 points a week if they were putting up their average production from last year, which is nuts.
Yeah, unfortunately, I suck at math, so I didn't think of it that way, but I did look at the PPR aspect of it after that, and I figured, with Tyler Boyd in the 6, he's got a rookie quarterback, so I figure he plays a slot. All right, fine. He'll fill in, he'll throw him the ball, and the whole world is down on Julian Edelman as if he's not a good football player, if he's not playing with Brady, and who knows, maybe they'll probably trade him down to Tampa anyways. But to get him in the 8th, and then Sanders in the 11th, they kind of said, all right, this is cool. These are 3 good veteran receivers that are going to get the ball. And if you fill him in behind those tight ends and CMC and Lamar, I think I've really never built a team like this because, like I said, I don't get to pick from the first spot. But it was kind of a plan, and I didn't think Lamar would make it to the 24th overall pick, but he did. And once he did, it was easy to pull the trigger on Andrews and say, okay, it's May 1st. Let's have some fun with this and create an experiment.
Exactly.
See how it goes.
That is right.
You know?
Eric Sisson joining us. Mr. Pinkstripes had the 101 pick in Apocalypse, and you can check out that draft board. It's up streaming on youtube.com/highstakesfantasyfootball. As you were just describing, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, and Rob Gronkowski are the 3 tight ends you took in the 3, 4, 5. And I guess it kind of works to your advantage. You've done enough of these drafts. You don't necessarily need to build a deep wide receiver base, and you can kind of wait on them, especially this year, and get some receivers late. You get Boyd as your number 1. You already talked about Edelman, and then when you talk about getting possession guys like Sanders and Shepard late, also N'Keal Harry in there, taking potentially another step forward with a big opportunity in front of him. What sort of numbers do you see N'Keal Harry putting up in New England now that you got that Patriots wide receiver stack?
I'm hoping one of them figures out how to be the number 1. I figure Stidham, I think, is going to be the quarterback there. And, they both came into the league the same year, so they probably have a rapport. Harry's, I love distressed assets. I've always loved, especially early in the draft season where everyone says, oh, this guy's, he's washed. Sony Michel, he's terrible. Okay, well, he plays behind the Patriots running, offensive line with Bill Belichick. Julian Edelman lost his quarterback. He's still Julian Edelman, Super Bowl MVP. Manny Sanders is now playing in a dome with Drew Brees, and Harry he's a prospect. I mean, he's a first-round pick. I mean, everyone picks on the Patriots draft, but I don't think the hoodie is that stupid. He obviously saw something in Harry that he's good, and the guy's a beast. He looks like he could play on both sides of the ball and put a 50 on and play linebacker and knock someone's head off. He's a player, and if you remember at the end of the season last year, he had a couple plays in that Kansas City game and a few games where he was catching the ball and Brady was looking at him, and I'm guessing, I know Brady doesn't like young receivers, but I'm guessing Stidham's going to give him more of a shot than Brady did.
OJ Howard, you get late, so you get this Buccaneers tight end stack going on too. How do you see Brady? And we talked a little bit about this with Liz Ballard, who's also in this draft, picking at the 7 spot. But Eric, when you look at the Buccaneers divvying up targets, let's just talk about specifically the tight ends. Gronk versus Howard versus Brate. Obviously, you had your pick of the litter. You took Gronk first. But how do Howard and Brate figure into this target distribution?
So I got all 3. Took Brate in the 19th. And I'm figuring, I hate to say it, but one of them's got to get hurt, right? Someone's going to get hurt or traded. I know OJ, they picked up his option, so that's got to be, I don't know, like $9 million. And Brate, they have signed to a reasonable contract. Brady's going to find out who his binky is. I'm sure it'll be Gronk, but, Gronk's a great blocker, so he's going to probably be in line a lot. And Howard's a great blocker as well. I mean, for all we know, we'll be talking about this in November, laughing and saying Cameron Brate all of a sudden has 10 touchdowns, and he's the pass catcher, while OJ and Gronk are just mauling people on, the sides of each tackle. And, Brate will be the pick of the draft. I have no idea. But I figured if I could get all 3 of them, if one of them pans out, great. And like I said, it's a homer pick. I mean, I'm a Pats fan, so getting Gronk in the 5th was kind of fun.
Well, that's good. And getting you on these airwaves again is always fun for us, too. You follow Eric on Twitter at Mr. Pinkstripes, Mr. Pinkstripes. Eric, thank you so much for calling in tonight. Congratulations on putting this team together. It looks like to be more than competitive, especially with the tight 1.5 per catch for tight end scoring. This is, I wouldn't say it's a juggernaut, but it's definitely a good team. So congrats on that. And thanks for calling in. Enjoy the rest of the drafting season, dude.
Eric, Dave, stay safe, and have a great night. Thank you very much.
You do the same, my friend.
Thank you.
Eric Sisson, ladies and gentlemen. Calling in, actually, Eric finished 8th overall in the Football Guys Players Championship in the regular season last year, Dave. Certainly had a big-time first 11 weeks of the season. We'll see if he can continue that momentum into 2020. I don't think there's any reason to talk about his team any more than we already have, given that we have 11 other apocalypse teams we want to analyze here. But he was picking 1. Let's go to Michael Zuka's team, who is picking 2nd tonight, the Mongooses, Dave. And we'll get into his team. Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield are the quarterbacks. At running back, Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Matt Breida, Darrell Henderson, Boston Scott, Chris Thompson, Giovanni Bernard at running back, receivers, this was interesting strategy. He took a receiver every round from rounds 3 through 8, and then only took one more in round 17. They were Kenny Golladay, Robert Woods, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, Will Fuller, and then Paris Campbell late. Tight ends are Blake Jarwin and Dawson Knox, as we look at this team, Zane Gonzalez and Cleveland Browns. Interesting setup to this team. I got some question marks at tight end. I don't have as many question marks at running back. It's pretty much only 3 deep. But with all those receivers, Dave, he's going to be able to, if he starts the right ones, he's going to be able to be pretty dynamic.
I probably would have gone with a little more balanced approach and grabbed some tight end inside of the first 8 rounds, because I don't really understand the point when you're not playing best ball to have those 6 consecutive receiver picks. And he could have squeezed a tight end in there somewhere. I think that's the only area I would for sure change on my end.
Okay. All right. And Michael, I want to say he obviously didn't win the league last year, but I think he's had pretty good success in these 150 classics in the past. And certainly
that's great.
Very talented Terminator guy, too, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, the Breida pick in the 9th round, that's, he's a starting running back in the NFL. It's pretty sweet.
Well, you know what's funny is I don't necessarily think he'll be the starter there, but he's totally the Dolphins running back you want to own.
Who do you think, Pollard?
No, Jordan Howard is there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He supposedly is. Yeah.
But, you'd obviously still rather have Breida, no question.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Howard's a banger. He still can't catch. Matt Breida actually showed some pretty good explosion when he was in San Francisco. So I'm down with Matt Breida in the 9th. I think that's a really nice pick there.
Yeah.
Let's move on to pick number 3. This is pick number 3. This is D. Shabbat, Nitschke Orphan Asylum, picking at 3 tonight. The quarterbacks are Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford. Running backs Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, A.J. Dillon, LaMichael Perine. And then you have at receiver Chris Godwin, DK Metcalf, Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, Anthony Miller, Antonio Brown, James Washington. Tight ends T.J. Hawkinson, Chris Herndon, and Kyle Rudolph. Brandon McManus in the Chiefs defense. Dave, I'm not a fan of this team for a few reasons, but it's obviously very young at running back with 4 rookie running backs on this team. The number 3 receiver, Christian Kirk, I'm not really sure how he factors in Arizona as far as the pecking order there. And you can make the same case with Deontay Johnson. Now, he does have James Washington late, too. But, again, you got to kind of know which one to start on a week-to-week basis. The Antonio Brown pick I'm lost on. I don't really understand that. And, I guess the tight end depth is good, but this is more of a tight end setup for best ball rather than classic.
It's hard for me to have a problem with any of your analysis. Hawkinson is no guarantee to be a breakout this year. Herndon is looking like a potential bust. I don't know that he's worth much of anything. And I agree with what you're saying about the running backs and the receivers, actually, yeah.
Curtis Hirsch, from the Fairways franchise, was picking 4th in Apocalypse tonight. He goes with Kyler Murray as his lone quarterback. His running backs are Dalvin Cook, David Johnson, Tariq Cohen, Latavius Murray, Anthony McFarland, Rashad Penny, Joshua Kelly, and Travion Williams. Wow. The receivers are Julio Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster, T.Y. Hilton, Brandon Cooks, Laviska Shenault, Josh Reynolds, and Jalen Hurd. Tight ends are Evan Engram and Ian Thomas. So, looking at this squad, it's good running back depth. Tariq Cohen as your number 3 is a little shaky. I like the top 3 receivers, even the top 4. Brandon Cooks is your number 4. I think you're doing things all right there. Evan Engram, and I like the Ian Thomas pick. I guess if I had to pick at nits on this, Dave, is I guess just the depth at running back probably. You got some question marks there, but if an injury falls one way or the other, now you got a really good team here.
Well, he has a lot of wild cards at running back. With Cohen, Murray, McFarland, Penny, and Kelly. There's a lot of possibilities there. So I think his running back depth is kind of okay, actually. Maybe some of the players I would have switched out for other players, but it's a pretty good balanced team in a lot of regards.
You like Ian Thomas this year, taking over in Carolina?
If that's in the 11th round, I like Ian Thomas. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's worth a shot for sure.
Okay. All right, so that's Curtis Hirsch with the Fairways team at 4. Let's go to number 5. This is Joe Van Gogh and his Smokin' Joes. Patrick Mahomes and Teddy Bridgewater are his quarterbacks. Let me ask you something real quick. I'm going to start this off right off the bat.
Yes, Joe Van Gogh is not his real name.
Okay, that's not what I was going to ask.
Oh.
You draft Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray, this is early in the season, early in the drafting season. Would you then ignore a backup quarterback, or would you still try to get one?
I don't know. I guess I'd probably grab one, I'm guessing.
All right. There are waivers for the classics before the season starts, right?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. The thing is, I've never been in this position. I've never drafted a quarterback this early where I've had to decide whether or not to draft a backup. But in any event, he does draft a backup here.
I mean, I'm just looking at like the 20th round picks that got selected, and out of all those, there's not really many that I'm that interested in, except for like Hunter Renfrow. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's a good pick in
Hunter
the 20th.
Renfrow, that's
I like that.
I could take him. So if that was my option, if it was Renfrow or a backup quarterback and I had one of those guys, maybe I would take Renfrow.
All right. Yep, I'm with you on that. All right, so his running backs after Mahomes and Bridgewater: Alvin Kamara, Todd Gurley, Keyshawn Vaughn, Kerryon Johnson, Duke Johnson, Damian Harris, DJ Dallas, Lynn Bowden, and Dare Ogunbowale. Wide receivers are DJ Chark, Deebo Samuel, Darius Slayton, McCole Hartman, Sammy Watkins. Tight ends Dallas Goedert, and Mike Gesicki. Dave, I'm not a huge fan of the tight ends, but Gesicki is your backup. I think in the 8th round is fine. Love the running backs. The receivers.
Yeah, he seems like he picked off value at running back like all over the place. Like Kerryon Johnson in the 9th, Duke Johnson in the 12th, even like Damian Harris. I mean, he had hardly any carries, but in the 14th round, I don't know.
And I know he's a rookie too, but DJ Dallas, it was drafted in the 4th round by Seattle, and their top 2 running backs are coming off season-ending injuries, including one that might knock Rashad Penny out for a good portion of this season as well.
Plus, DJ Dallas is a cool name.
That is a cool name.
It's like the opposite of Justin Herbert. He's like, hey, my name is Herbert. I'm going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like Herbert would not be invited to the party that's where DJ Dallas is performing.
Yeah, he'd be at the party that like the guy from Ghostbusters, the accountant held.
Oh, Rick Moranis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw this for my clients every single year.
It's a write-off.
It's a write-off for me.
I'm writing clients instead of friends.
I just want to see if you wanted to come over, Dana. That Peter Venkman, he's a bad seed. All right, anyway, so his receivers were not great. That's my issue with this team.
Yeah, I mean, he had an option to take other players. I like Chark and Samuel. I think they're both fine players.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, you're kind of dropping off. He did get Hardman and Watkins, hoping one of those two kind of did something.
But again, it's like a best ball type.
It doesn't sound like he's going to be starting 4 receivers anytime soon.
Before we get to more analysis, let's go back to the phone lines and go to the 617 and welcome in another guest here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. To whom are we speaking right now?
Hello, you're speaking to Jake. I'm in the Revelations draft team run the table.
Yes, you are, Jake. How far along is Revelations right now?
We are now almost halfway through the 18th round.
All right, so you're wrapping things up here pretty quickly.
Is this like Jake the commissioner?
No, Jake Venuti, run the table, is drafting fourth tonight. All right, so Jake, let's talk about sort of your strategy going in. Basically, you kind of knew who was going to be on the table for you with the 4th overall pick. Talk to us a little bit about why you went with who you went with there.
Pick overall. That's
yes, sir.
I went Dalvin Cook, and I was honestly thinking Derrick Henry for a little bit, but I like Cook, especially in PPR, and I was definitely fine with that pick. But I did get sniped in the 4th by Ron Meyer.
Now, who did he take in the 4th round that he sniped you on?
He took in the 4th round. I actually went Adam Thielen, and I was debating him or James Conner, but I already went Dalvin Cook, Chris Godwin, Todd Gurley, so I just decided to go Thielen as my wide receiver 2, which I like, thinking Conner would possibly make it back. But now looking back on the draft, I should have went Conner in round 4.
You know, and I don't think Thielen's a bad pick. Obviously, you don't either since you were the one who made it. But with no Diggs there, I mean, could we see a resurgence in Adam Thielen this year where he's getting 120 targets and taking advantage and maybe turning in a 90-catch season?
Well, honestly, I think that Thielen could have close to 130 or 140 targets. I mean, with Diggs gone, and the offense will definitely pass more than they did last year. I finish as a wide receiver 1 easily.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. There's a lot of targets that left when Diggs left town. We'll see if any more of those go to Irv Smith. I know they want to get him involved, but hey, it's Irv Smith versus Adam Thielen. They know where their bread is buttered. Jake, when you look back 18 rounds of picks tonight, which one was your favorite pick that you made of all the selections thus far?
My favorite pick, honestly, I think my favorite pick was Matt Breida in the 8th round as my RB3. I really like that pick. I think he could easily put up running back 2 numbers. A low-end RB2, but...
You know, I'm with you. I think that's a great pick. He fell to the 9th in Apocalypse. He's going on average at the 803. Why do you think people are sleeping on Matt Breida? Is it just that they still think he's in San Francisco, or what's the deal? Because this guy could make some damage or could create some damage in that Dolphins backfield.
I really don't know why people are sleeping on him. I mean, they do have Jordan Howard, but Jordan Howard and Matt Breida are 2 different players. Matt Breida is like a speedster, and Jordan Howard's more of a power back. But it could be maybe because he's on Miami, or I don't know. But Miami did just draft some offensive linemen. They got Parker and Williams. They have Fitzpatrick, who's just going to sling the ball around until Tua starts, if Tua starts. But I like Breida, and especially in a PPR league. I mean, as my running back 3 with what was left on the board, I was completely fine with that. I'll take him in the 8th round all day.
Talking with Jake Venuti, who's drafting 4th in the Revelations draft tonight. Jake, was there any surprises, anything that you didn't expect to see among your fellow Revelations drafters tonight?
Probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire at pick in round 2, pick 1. I was very surprised to see that.
Yeah, I mean, and this is, and I was talking about this earlier in the program, that's where I was seeing him go on Friday night and Saturday drafts last weekend because people were so excited about him. You know, we talked with Dave earlier about this. I get the thrill with it, but at the same time, Damian Williams is still there, and he's still a rookie. Are there any rookie running backs that you're necessarily excited about strictly for 2020, Jake?
Honestly, my favorite rookie for where I could get him would probably be Cam Akers, because the Rams did draft him early, and they had Henderson, and I don't really know why they would draft Akers that early if they had the trust in Henderson. So, honestly, he would probably be my favorite for where he's going in drafts. I like him around the 6th round as like an RB3, but maybe a low-end RB2 for right now.
Yeah, I know there's some people out there that have said that they think he is going to lead this year's rookie running back class in fantasy points, at least for 2020. I don't know if I'm willing to jump on that bandwagon quite yet, but it will be interesting to see how it turns out because I like Cam Akers as far as his draft value goes as well. Jake, listen, man, we really appreciate you calling in tonight and chatting with us. Good luck the rest of the way in Revelations. Thanks so much, man.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Jake Venuti, ladies and gentlemen, drafting 4th in Revelations as they wrap up their draft there shortly. We are going to wrap up our coverage here of Apocalypse as we get into the 16th tonight. That is Kevin Bassiker, the Kobe's crew, who is drafting 6th tonight. Dave, we look at his team. It's Russell Wilson and Jared Goff at the signal caller position. Kenyan Drake, Leonard Fournette, Cam Akers, Ronald Jones, Jalen Samuels, and Jalen Richard are the running backs. Receivers, Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, Henry Ruggs, John Brown, Rashad Perriman, Alshon Jeffrey, and then tight ends Tyler Higbee, Austin Hooper, and Greg Olsen. Harrison Butker is the kicker, and the Bills are the defense. Devin Funchess, I should say, is also on this team at receiver. Team construction-wise, I don't really necessarily have any issues with this. I think it's a pretty well put-together team. I think with you, or with something you said previously, I think I would have gone with different players here. I'm not, it's so funny because Drake went in the 6th slot in both Genesis and Apocalypse, but he was 1 round later in Apocalypse. Leonard Fournette, again, I don't have the greatest feeling about this year, but Cam Akers I really like in the 5th, and then those tight ends are pretty good too with Higbee, Hooper, and Olsen.
Yeah, I like to see him overall, actually. I even thought Jeffrey in the 14th round was a solid value. I'm not really sure how well Ruggs is going to do necessarily, but I like this team quite a bit. I thought it worked out well. Russell Wilson sandwiched between Higbee and Hooper, and he really solidified both those positions right there.
Alshon Jeffrey, I don't get. Jalen Reagor is a rookie. He is not going to be a godsend this year. And Alshon Jeffrey, granted, will probably miss time, but he is going to be a factor out there in this passing offense. I did a draft couple of weeks ago, and I took him in like the 18th or 19th round. I'm like, what did he die? I don't understand this. Like, this is great value for him. Even Alshon Jeffrey here in the 14th round. That's fantastic value as his number, 6 receiver? Good job on you, Kevin Bassiger. That looks good. All right, let's shift over to Liz Ballard's team, drafting at the 7 spot. Tom Brady, Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Running backs are Chris Carson, James Conner, Damian Williams, Zach Moss, Devontae Freeman, and Jerick McKinnon. Wide receivers Tyreke Hill, Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Robbie Anderson, Denzel Mims, and Deshaun Jackson. Tight ends Travis Kelce, Jonnu Smith, and Will Dissly. Okay, breaking this down here, I like the first 2 receivers, Dave. After that, it gets kind of shaky for me. As far as running backs go, I think that's a pretty good trio for not taking one until round 4. But then after that, I have question marks about Moss, obviously Freeman, who's without a team, and McKinnon's a fine value late. So the depth, I guess, I worry about at running back and receiver on this team. Otherwise, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I don't really care for the receivers after the top 2. I think she did well at the running back position, getting veterans, like you said, 4, 5, 6. Carson, Connor, Williams. Probably 2 of those 3 are going to amount to being pretty decent. I mean, you'd think or hope. Kelsey's obviously a great pick. Quarterbacks are fine. It's a returning champ, so I can't dig on this team too much.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to pound for pound. Wayne Ferguson, longtime player in the FFPC as well as these early classics. He goes with Josh Allen and Carson Wentz at his quarterbacks. Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams are his running backs. Wide receivers, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, Michael Gallup, Marvin Jones, Michael Pittman, Dede Westbrook, Larry Fitzgerald, Randall Cobb, and Hunter Renfrow. And tight ends, Eric Ebron, Jay Sternberger. For waiting on tight end in the FFPC to get Ebron and Sternberger starting in round 11, I think is pretty good work. The trio of running backs he kicked off the draft with, I think, are really good. I look at, Ridley is fine and Allen's good in the 5th, but did you notice how many number 2 receivers he has on his team, like on their NFL teams? Ridley, Gallup, Marvin Jones, Michael Pittman, Westbrook, Fitzgerald, Cobb. Renfrow, I guess, is technically number 4, but he's probably, or number 3, but he's probably going to be number 2 in targets in Oakland. I don't necessarily know if I have any fantasy analysis on that. I just think it's interesting that he went with all those number 2 receivers. This is a solid team. He needs one of those tight ends to come through. I'm a big Sternberger guy. Running back should carry him, and if he hits on a couple of these receivers, not named Ridley or Allen, who I think he did hit on, this would be a competitive team.
Yeah, I kind of like his team, actually. Even though he waited, like you said, super long at tight end, the thing about a lot of the players he grabbed, now not all of them, but a lot of them is that they're just on good offenses. I mean, like Ebron and Sternberger are these so-called garbage tight ends, but they're on pretty good offenses. And then, Ridley, Allen, not this year necessarily, but, Michael Gallup, Marvin Jones. I mean, there's some good offenses. There's going to be a lot of points being scored off of the teams that he has those number 2 receivers on. So I think he's going to do pretty well. And the running backs are great.
Yeah, they really are. Even we talked to Liz Ballard earlier. She was surprised at how much Miles Sanders is climbing up boards, but I think deservedly so. I know you're a little bit less bullish on him, but I think at the 108, that's fine. All right, let's go to Larry Jilton's team. He is drafting at the 9 spot here tonight, and he went with Matt Ryan and Joe Burrow, the rookie out of LSU, as his quarterbacks. Running backs, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Raheem Mostert, James White, Antonio Gibson, Naheem Hines, and Adrian Peterson. Receivers, Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamison Crowder, Golden Tate, and Chase Claypool. Hunter Henry, Jared Cook, and Jack Doyle are his tight ends. Matt Gay is the kicker, and the Vikings are the defense.
Thanks for that.
Sorry. Just being thorough. I like the tight ends on this team. To get a trio where Jack Doyle is your number 3, that's really, really good. After Raheem Mostert, I guess James White as your number 4 isn't bad. Gibson, who knows? He's kind of a wild card. Hines should catch passes. Peterson is Peterson. And then the receiver depth is not good. Justin Jefferson is your 3. Crowder's your number 4. And Golden Tate and Chase Claypool, I don't think you're going to get much from them this year. So receivers have to come through, but he's pretty top-heavy with Henry and Eckler.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I think you're pretty much right on with almost everything you said. I mean, really. I mean, I think Golden Tate in the 14th, he might do something. And Nyheim Hines, with all the talk about, Taylor and all the talk about Marlon Mack, you still need someone to catch passes on third down, and neither one of those other two guys are really someone they're looking towards. So I think Hines is still going to be a productive back of some sort. Top 36 probably.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually picked him as my number 5 running back in a league last week, and I still feel really good about it. This is pre-Taylor, and I still feel pretty good about it. Okay, Doomsday 1, that is Chris Flint's team picking at the 10 spot tonight, Dave. He went with Deshaun Watson and Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback, Joe Mixon, Le'Veon Bell, Jordan Howard, Tevin Coleman, Chase Edmonds at running back. Receivers are Allen Robinson, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Parker, Jalen Reagor, Curtis Samuel, Alan Lazard, Mohamed Sanu, and Devin Duvernay. Then you have tight end George Kittle, Hayden Hurst, and Tyler Eifert. I'm concerned with the depth at receiver and running back on this team. I think his tight ends are going to be fine. I like his quarterbacks. Does he have enough receivers? Does he have enough, good running backs? That's the question.
Well, you're right, but also look at what he got by sacrificing depth at running back or receiver. He gets George Kittle and Deshaun Watson. I mean, that's a very tough combination to put together and still have pretty good starting running backs and receivers, and I think he did a nice job with that. Mixon, Bell, you get Jordan Howard, who I was dogging on earlier, but he is still a player. Allen Robinson, Diggs, and Parker, and then Watson, Kittle, and Hurst is your backup or your flex guy. That's pretty solid. I like this team.
Le'Veon Bell's current ADP is the 308. He gets selected at the 303 tonight.
310.
310. I'm an idiot. Tonight he goes at 310. I'm not a big Bell guy. I think I might be a big Bell guy this year at that price, though. To get a guy like that who's going to touch the ball that much in the late third makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And, he had taken that time off, and so last year could be an aberration. Bell could be back and better than ever. We don't know for sure.
We don't. Alex P. Keaton, we do know, was picking 11th tonight. That is Darrell Wall's franchise, former guest of the show. Quarterbacks, he went with, am I seeing this right? It just went with Drew Lock. Yeah, not a bad way to do it. Go bold or go home.
It's not Andrew Luck. It's Drew Lock.
Right, exactly, yeah. He also goes with Nick Chubb, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, Marlon Mack, Qual Armstead, Justin Jackson, Darrington Evans at running back. Wide receivers are Davante Adams, Mari Cooper, A.J. Brown, Mike Williams, C.D. Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, and Brian Edwards at receiver. Tight ends are Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, and David Njoku. For waiting on tight end, I like what he did there. The top 3 receivers I really like. Say what you will about the lock pick, but this is a total bulky move to wait and only draft one quarterback and then have it just be Drew Lock.
That's a sucky one.
Yeah, I don't think Drew Lock sucks. I think he's given a lot of pretty good tools this year. And then running back.
Okay, Drew Lock went 2 rounds ahead of Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay, well, Big Ben, I was obviously taking Roethlisberger over Lock. You know my affinity for him. But a lot of handcuffs at running back here with Evans, Jackson, Armstead, Marlon Mack, you can make the case. David Montgomery, he's not really a handcuff. He should be the guy there. And then Dobbins. So, again, if one of these running backs hits after an injury, he could get some pretty good value. I feel like this is – I guess the only thing I probably would have done differently is I wouldn't have probably gone as rookie-heavy as he did.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I think there's a few too many rookies, and I think that a lot of them are going to end up just sitting parked on his bench because of the fact that there's not going to be much of a training camp. So I just feel like they're not going to get much done. Although, you never know. Someone's got to hit. Brian Edwards is in the 19th round. Super value there, in my opinion. I think that was a really good pick.
I do too. We should have asked the Studebakers about Brian Edwards, especially Brian Studebaker, who turned me on to Deebo Samuel last year. The South Carolina rookie. Brian Edwards is another one this year that I think is going to be pretty good. All right, let's wrap things up with John Fetty's professionals picking at the 12 spot tonight. He goes with Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Running backs Aaron Jones, Devon Singletary, Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, Justice Hill. Receivers DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Moore, Jarvis Landry, A.J. Green, Preston Williams, and T. Higgins. Tight ends are Zach Ertz and Irv Smith. Dave, like the receivers, I think I'm cool with the tight ends. I think it was overkill taking Cousins. I think Brees and Rodgers were enough. Brees might have been enough, quite frankly, after we saw what Darrell Wall did with just Drew Lock. And And then, I thought this was, he didn't draft a lot of receivers. I excluded John Ross and Corey Davis. I guess he added those guys late too. But I like this team. I guess the thing is you got to be careful with Singletary and Ingram not losing their spots as the leading rushers there. If they hold that, this is a championship-level team as far as Apocalypse is concerned.
I think the nice thing is he's doing the opposite of some of the other players. The only rookie he drafted I can see is T. Higgins, unless there was one late. Nope. So you have all these veterans that have played, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Landry, A.J. Green, Preston Williams, second-year player. That could be an elite wide receiver core. And if Devon Singletary, Ingram, Aaron Jones, all they have to do is keep their jobs, which seems likely. And Lindsey, granted, he has to deal with Melvin Gordon, but nevertheless, he's a good player, and he's still going to get touches, at least 30% of them. So I like this team a lot. Yeah, like you said, Reeves and Rodgers is like a cornucopia. This is kind of where I would like to be, leaving the rookies alone and drafting a lot of the redraft guys that are falling.
And he gets that Patriots defense that Bill Belichick will whip into shape. And I say that tongue in cheek only a little bit because who were we talking about earlier tonight about Sony Michel? That was Shane Hallam. And he said, look, if I know Bill Belichick, he is going to run the ball without
drain clock
and have count on the defense, right? So you'd think that the Patriots defense, people were talking about the Patriots defense the first 8 or 9 weeks as being an historic fantasy football defense. You know that they could be pretty good again this year.
I'm sure that the first thing they're going to do when they're talking to Jarrett Stidham is like, hey, coach, am I going to work on the the route tree, the passing? Well, no. First of all, we're going to work on you managing the 4-minute clock, so we always get an extra possession at the end of the first half.
Right.
That's most important.
The longest pass you throw this year will be a pitch to James White.
Pretty much, yeah.
So
sometimes they'll be forward, a lot of times not.
Exactly. Hopefully, we took you forward with our draft coverage tonight. We're going to wrap things up right now. I want to thank all of our callers tonight: Dustin Hayek, Brent Studebaker, Brian Studebaker, Todd Burrows, Shane Hallam, Liz Ballard, Rob Marshall, Eric Sisson, and, of course, Jake Venuti. I want to thank Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you for tuning in for this live draft coverage tonight. As a reminder, social media, the FFPC, HSFFO, Facebook and Twitter, we're going to get these boards posted up within the next 24 hours there, so you'll be able to check out the final draft boards from all 3 leagues. Next week we are live at 10/9 Central, and our guest is going to be 3-time Dynasty champ and Genesis drafter. He was drafting out of the 101 spot tonight. It was Stuart Keenan. He's going to be on our show next Friday at 10/9 Central. Remember to register for the FFPC main event. All the best ball slims, and dynasty leagues going on at myffpc.com. We get a midnight draft coming up in roughly an hour. 7 spots left, according to the Dizzle. So make sure you're jumping into that. And football guys drafts all weekend. Dynasty drafts, I think we have startups going Sunday. So get in on the Football Guys Players Championship early bird as well. Good luck in your rookie draft. Stay healthy and safe. Your weekend starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Hey, as long as we're talking about dynasty leagues, want to give a warm welcome to a new dynasty player in one of our private dynasty leagues that Dave and I are in together. It's Two-Packer, who joined our Gridiron Legends League, and I believe I got a trade offer from him. Haven't checked it out yet, but I'm very excited to see what that looks like.
Oh, does he have Will Fuller?
He does not. Oh. This might have been a draft pick only. Trade. I got to look it up. So I'm going to go home and commission that midnight draft. Thanks everybody for listening. The live stream on YouTube will be cut off here shortly, but we'll get all those draft boards posted for you. And good luck in all your rookie drafts tomorrow, everybody. Certainly appreciate you hanging out with us for 2 hours tonight. We'll talk again next week.